Welcome back, everyone, to a Vendetta Tuesday edition of Vendetta Sports Daily Show. Usually it's Chris Bagdonis here today, but it's me, Jeremiah Dependent, filling in for Bagdonis. He said he's not feeling too well, so shout out to Bagdonis. Hope you feel better, brother. But here with Hannah Fam, we're gonna be talking some MLB, talking some NBA playoffs, and we'll probably talk a little bit about some fantasy baseball as well. But Matt, how you doing today, man?
Doing all right, man. Doing all right. How about yourself?
Been all over the place today. So, been able to kind of just slow the motor a little bit and be able to make some time to fill in for Bagdonis here. But let's just hop right into it and talk about some NBA.
Where do you want to start, man? We have had 8 series? Well, I mean that's how it is.
The opening round.
I do the math in my head really quick, and I was like 16.
I would say, you know what? Let's just already jump into probably like the talk of the town for a little bit of it's funny, the town, talking about Golden State with Golden State and Sacramento. And I did the postseason predictions with McGinnis last week, and I had Sacramento actually beating Golden State in 7. But the first 2 games of the series have been really, really fun to watch. And I just want to get your opinion on because the whole Draymond Green situation that's been like sparking discussion, with so for those of you who didn't watch the game, I believe it was a fighting for a loose ball, and Domantas Sabonis found his way onto the court floor and intentionally grabbed Draymond Green's leg as Draymond was trying to get up the court, and Draymond stomped on Domantas Sabonis' stomach or sternum, whatever you want to say. So, but technicals and flagrant fouls were given out. So, Hannafin, I want to talk about that with you, and what's your take on that whole situation?
Hold on, I'm pulling up the video just so we could.
Yeah, because it was like Draymond has done a lot, and this is definitely like something that's probably gonna be an all-timer for him for sure.
Okay, I think I got some.
It should be easy to find.
I type in Green Sabonis on Twitter and like 17 different things. So it's like, okay, all right. Let me share my screen right quick. I should have probably had this up beforehand, but I didn't.
It's all good.
Come on. I could have given my thoughts within this time. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So pulling this up. Why is this taking so long to load, dude?
I'll say in the meantime, let's talk about your Miami Heat and how they took Game 1 against Milwaukee.
Oh, I mean, we'll save that. We'll save that for last.
Oh, you got something you want to say?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts when it comes to Miami.
Okay.
Okay. All right. You know what?
Hold on. Let me see here.
It's not sharing.
I think we got it now.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah. All right. Over 1 million.
So yeah,
views.
what happened is, and now it's like barely low.
Now it's acting choppy.
What the heck is this?
We just love the internet.
We just love the internet. Why is my internet so bad? What you know what? I'm not even.
You know what? I think if you've seen the games, you got the point. But
you probably The best.
You probably seen it on Twitter.
Yeah, you've probably seen this by now. But I mean, at first I thought when I saw it live, because I mean, you could probably it was at the right of the screen, so you could see it from a distance. But at first I was like, why is he bear hugging his ankles? And then all of a sudden I see him trip and fall. And I was like, oh, are we gonna have a fight or something? But then you see the replay and it's like, okay, he falls. I'm not even sure he was intentionally trying to grab his ankle. It looked like he was trying to pull, I think, Clay out of the way for the rebound. He pulls Clay out of the way, but subsequently falls. And then at that point, I think he's trying to hold his face or something. Maybe he got hit in the face. But by doing that, he incidentally wraps his arms around Draymond's ankle. And Draymond yanks. But then the stomp was a little bit unnecessary. I tweeted something last night where I was like, you can't just grab a man's ankle, because at first I didn't know, but then it's you also can't stomp someone, because it's you could pick your leg up and that it's stomping someone's like it's an avoidable situation. Like you don't have to revert to that.
Mhm.
And so like that was a bit excessive. They did x-rays, his sternum and lungs and everything like that came back negative. So I'm guessing he'll play game 3, but like it was a funny situation. And then him getting into it with the fans, like on the sidelines, like it's not surprising, but it's also like Draymond Green we're talking about here. So it's like, I really didn't have a vote, or I was pretty indifferent about all of that, but him trying to like hype up the crowd and hype up the boos, like I'd probably do the same thing if I were Draymond, because that's just how I was when I played. If people booed me, I would welcome the boos, but that's besides the point. But like just from like what happened from the play, it felt a little bit like Draymond didn't have to do that. I mean, I don't think that Sabonis was intentionally trying to like hold him back and grab his ankle, but that's just my opinion. It's hard to measure that. So
Yeah, I would say for me, I would have to look at the play a little bit more. I saw it throughout the morning. It's tough for me on the East Coast trying to stay up until, because those games will go until like midnight, 1 a.m.
Right.
if it's overtime or something, right? So for the most part, I'm catching the clips and the games on highlights the day after for the most part. But I would say that from what it looked like the first couple of times I saw it, it looks like he was trying to cover up his face, but it just seems like it was all too coincidental to like lock up Draymond's leg right at that moment. But again, we could be the benefit of the doubt for Sabonis anyway. But I would say in terms of from a team standpoint, I'm excited to watch Game 3. I'm not sure what consequences are going to come with Draymond. I know he got a flagrant 2 because of the stomp, and then Sabonis got a flagrant 1. So I'm not sure if Draymond's availability might come into play, because I'm not sure how the how all that stuff works with somebody getting a flagrant 2, because I know immediate ejection, but I'm not sure if he gets suspended. But
he might.
Yeah. So I mean,
do you think he will?
Do I think he will? My thing is, I guess it's more trying to set an example, but also knowing the kind of player that Draymond is. But I feel like if it was anybody else in that situation, nobody goes and stomps on another player, But for the most part, I think it was out of impulse, kind of like the whole thing at the beginning of the season, with Jordan Poole and everything. I think it was more like heat of the moment kind of thing. I'm pretty sure if he was, he even had reactions to it. I didn't watch the show, but that would actually be intriguing to actually go and check out what he had to say about all that. But I feel like Draymond does it to himself. He likes playing that villain enforcer role, and that's kind of been how he's been getting his money. So it's interesting to see how the rest of the series plays out. I still have Kings beating Golden State in 7 at the end of the day.
We're in an interesting spot with this series. I too had Kings in 7 heading into the series. I went over this with McDonald's last week, and then I also went over it with Jerry on Friday. And I was going back and forth. Like I told both of them, I was like, I don't really have one like set in stone. I ended with Kings in 7, but it's like you could very easily talk me into Warriors in 7 just because of like their veteran leadership. The Kings were bottom 6 defense this year, and so like that heading into the series was a little bit of a concern for me, because it's like when you're in these type of series, especially against Steph, Clay, and Dre, with Wiggins coming back, with Looney, like they had their preferred starting 5 for like the 28th time this season. So it's like that they don't have a big sample together, at least this season. But historically speaking, when they've played together, they know how to play together. And so it's like from that perspective, I was like, you could easily talk me into Warriors in 7. They have the experience outside of Harrison Barnes, former Warrior Harrison Barnes, and Sabonis. They don't have much playoff experience. So it's like, how would you expect them to respond in that type of environment? Well, through these first 2 games, they've responded very well, especially De'Aaron Fox. That's one of like the top fourth quarter score. I mean, he's the top fourth quarter scorers in the entire league. He's going to win that clutch player of the year award or whatever it's called. But like with that, like Golden State's in an interesting spot. Like just watching these 2 games, Golden State led the league in pace, and so it's not a traditional from them. They've been one of the league leaders in pace throughout their dynasty run. But like this is an interesting case, because it's like you don't see a team like Sacramento play with this type of pace in a playoff series. You just don't. That's not something that's typically played in the playoffs. Usually a lot of this is just reserved to the half court. And so teams are more methodical. They go through their sets and stuff like that. But like you asked Mike Brown after in halftime of game one, he was like, no, we want to play faster. And Sacramento was a team who was already top 5, top 10 in pace this season as well. And so it's like these two fast-paced teams. Sacramento's younger, they're quicker, and they want to play at this like rapid pace. And it's just like I'm watching these two games. Yet Golden State has all this experience, and it's like they know how to play fast. But since they haven't really faced something like this before, at least in recent memory, how will they fare 6-7 games into a series? Because this pace is just not normal for them. Even though the score may not reflect it directly, the pace eventually wears on your legs. Like that's a real thing. And that's what they've done to other teams in the past, and this isn't something that's happening to them themselves. And this is their first time down 0-2 in a series in this era. They haven't gone down 0-2 in a series since 2007. And so it's like this is a situation where they haven't really been in before. And so it's like I wonder how they respond. What type of adjustments do they make at home? Do they try to intentionally play slower? I mean, it looked like they have a little bit, but it feels like they're the one that's being outpaced, not pacing other teams.
Yeah, I would say for Golden State, the reason I was so confident in Kings in 7 is just not even for all the points that you mentioned, but just the fact that they have been like really, really good playing in at their home arena, and then just absolutely terrible on the road.
Yeah,
and I feel
that was another reason too.
Yeah. So, and you have a team in Sacramento that hasn't made the playoffs in 17 years, and a fan base that was waiting to even make it back into the playoffs 17 years. I'm not even sure you can say historically bad, but just one of the worst teams in the league on the road, going up against a team that's been hungry for a playoff game. I feel like that's just a bad matchup for the Warriors from that standpoint. But I can easily like be persuaded too, because again, it's like trying to count out LeBron when like all the times he's been in like those kinds of situations when his back's been against the wall. It's a real testament to like the championship pedigree if these guys do find a way to put the Kings away in the first round, or at least try to make those adjustments about trying to get a couple of wins on the road. Because I feel if it just is trading home wins, then that's like the biggest reason for me that Sacramento could topple the defending champions.
Right. And like if you could just go back and look at these like first two games, Sacramento hasn't shot the ball well. They've shot 30% from deep. They're shooting worse from beyond the arc than Golden State is. According to synergy tracking data, they're on wide open threes. Sacramento's like shooting below 30%. And that this is like when a defender is 6 feet or large, or not 6 foot, 6 foot or beyond, like away from the closest defender. And they're still shooting below 30% from deep. I mean, they've done a very good job. I think Sacramento has attacking the glass. I mean, I think they're out rebounding Golden State on the offensive glass by like 11. They've scored 41 second chance points to these first two games. Like they're finding ways to get these extra possessions. And as I've talked about it before in different spaces, that rebounding helps you win games. And especially in these type of playoff environments where a lot of these games are close. Again, a lot of the stuff is reserved to the half court. The pace slows down a little bit. You want to have those extra possessions, and Golden State hasn't done a good job on the glass, or at least not in my opinion. And of course, as we saw last night, I think they had like 22 turnovers, something like that. Like it was just careless basketball. And it wasn't even like Sacramento's defense was forcing a whole lot. It was just a lot of self-inflicted wounds. And as we've seen over the years, Golden State is prone to these type of mistakes. It's not the first time ever where we've said, oh, Golden State's playing a little bit rushed, they're playing a little bit sloppy. But that's just how they play. But it's like, again, in these types of games, when you're the one that's being outpaced and you're throwing the ball away to a team who thrives in transition, like that's just a recipe for disaster in a 7-game series, no matter the personnel that you have. I mean, turnovers and possessions, like you want to have the most possessions in these types of games. And if you're rebounding the ball, at least if you're getting enough offensive rebounds and you're forcing turnovers, you're in a very, very, very good spot. That doesn't necessarily mean that's going to translate to success. That doesn't mean you're going to win every game. But it definitely helps you at least compete and stay in those games. And that's what we've seen from Sacramento in these first two games. And there's a little bit of like, I just wonder how again, Golden State's heading back to Chase Center. I think they were like 33-8 or something like that in the regular season at home. But Sacramento, surprisingly enough, they're one of two teams in the West who hadn't had a 500 or above record on the road. And so this team is also good on the road, unlike Golden State. So that's also something to look out for. But yeah, game 3, especially game 3 and game 4 especially, are both very important for Golden State. And because, again, this is just something that we haven't seen from them before, despite all of the playoff series over the years that they've played together. They've never been down 0-2 in a series, and that just in and of itself is wild, but that's besides the point.
Okay. All right. So just to kind of like still piggyback off this Golden State and Sacramento match, there's been a lot of good discussion. Just to kind of, who do you think is probably the most important player going forward now that the Kings are up 2-0? Is it somebody on the Kings or is it somebody on Golden State?
Well, I mean, Golden State, I would say you need more out of Jordan Poole. You need more out of Dante DiVincenzo. You need just more out of your, like, the bench production. Like, I have the box score from last night pulled up just on my iPad. Dante DiVincenzo played 13 minutes, scored 0 points. Not necessarily meaning that doesn't always translate to not impact, but he's only played 13 minutes. Jordan Poole was 1 of 7 from the floor in 16 minutes. He only had 4 points. Like, you can't. I mean, Jordan Poole has been. He's like kind of that ignitable spark. I mean, he can get you on a good night. He can get you 25, 30 off the bench. I mean, that's asking a lot from someone like who especially comes off the bench, but or at least he started a fair amount of the year because of the Wiggins injury. But like when he's coming off the bench, if he's giving you 20, 25 minutes, you're probably asking for 20, 25 points a game as that ignitable spark to supplement that production. And when you're not getting production from your depth, you're asking a lot out of Steph, and you're asking a lot out of Clay, and you're asking even a lot out of guys like Andrew Wiggins. Like, you're asking a lot out of some of these guys. Like the one bench player who really had that production last night, especially when they went small with Looney being in foul trouble, was Gary Payton. He finished 5 of 6 from the floor. He had 13 points. He was still a -1 in 27 minutes, but like he was still by far their best player off the bench. But you need that kind of production off the bench. So I'm kind of lumping both those guys in there. I like Dante DiVincenzo and I like Jordan Poole, but you probably also would want more from a guy like Jonathan Kuminga if he's in there, just to kind of apply that rim pressure and be that athletic specimen that we all know him to be, even though there are some mistakes in there, but that's what happens when you're a young player. That's not anything new. That's the same thing with Jordan Poole, but that's also like with Jordan Poole, he's got to be better defensively. Like Kuminga and DiVincenzo are 2 good defensive players. With Jordan Poole, you want to have that offensive production to kind of make up for that lack of defensive awareness or defensive acumen that you might have possession by possession. And so it's like I'm kind of lumping just the bench in there together, although there is a few particular names that I would just like to see more production out of. If Steph's not going to get you 35, 40 every night, if Clay's not going to hit 6 threes or whatever it is, like you're gonna need more from these guys. And also, like, they're not the only answers, but those are probably the best answers. For Sacramento, I mean, I'd still say the most important player, at least in this series, is probably De'Aaron. I mean, if Sabonis could play better, I mean, I haven't loved what I've seen from Sabonis through these first 2 games, but I'd say the most, I mean, because they're getting production from Malik Monk. Harrison Barnes was much better yesterday than he was in game 1. I mean, they've gotten some bench production from like Trey Lyles and stuff like that, but I'd say if De'Aaron can just keep doing De'Aaron things and they keep getting stops and forcing turnovers and whatnot, like, then you're sitting pretty if you're Sacramento. You just got to hope and pray that your team defense holds up, especially on the road.
Yeah. So it was interesting bringing up Sabonis because I feel that's like one of the main things that you can go about attacking Golden State is that like having a solid big man could really start giving them problems, especially just like you got my goodness, what's his name? Center for Looney. So yeah, so I feel like having yourself a solid big man or Sabonis playing better, he can really cause even more problems for Golden State. Like you were alluding to earlier, he hasn't played the best in this series. But
he was much better last night. But game 1, he was not good at all.
Yeah, so if you just get that what he's been providing that team all season and what they traded him for and to be. He's more of like a traditional center, I believe, in certain aspects. So I feel something like that, he can absolutely wreak havoc for Golden State. So I feel like that will only help Sacramento in the long run through the rest of the series. But I'm still anticipating Steph having himself a game or two to kind of give them a bit of a scare, because either way, no matter how bad the team may look, they're still the defending champion. So until we see the final box score, like Sacramento wins 4 games to whatever, like I can't count Golden State out, but I'm really pulling for Sacramento on this one.
Another player I want to highlight in this is Davion Mitchell, because Davion, he's done, at least in my opinion, a remarkable job face guarding and trying to make it hard on Steph. And it's not like it's one of those things where, I mean, Steph is Steph, and he's just going to get his own at certain points of the game. Like that stuff happens.
Just greatness.
It's greatness. Yeah. Like it's so hard to, like, you can't completely stop these guys. You can just hold them to, you can make it very difficult on them, but at some point they're going to get theirs. But I think Davion has done a remarkable job in the minutes that he's had, making it very difficult for Steph to just at least get some separation. And so he's another player. If I'm gonna have a most important player through these next however many games, I mean, if Golden State wins the series, they're gonna have to win 4 of the next 5. But if that's the case, I like Davion Mitchell to be like one of an X factor, or maybe not the X factor, but an X factor, because I think if he can continue just making it hard on Steph, not to say Steph is going to be completely stopped, but it's going to be a lot harder for Golden State to take over some of these games. Again, Sacramento's going to have to make, or I mean, they're going to make Wiggins, they're going to make Poole, they're going to make DiVincenzo, they're going to make maybe even Clay or even Dre beat them. But they want to take Steph out. I mean, we've seen a couple times already this series where they've gone to a box and one, like Toronto did in the finals like 4 years ago or something like that. Like,
it's crazy how time flies.
Yeah, like it's just they're going through. They're schematically they're just trying to take Steph out, and as they should. I mean, it's Steph Curry we're talking about here, but Davion Mitchell has been more like, I mean, that's how he was in college. His nickname, he has the best nickname in the NBA. It's called Off Night, because whenever someone goes up against him, they have an off night. And so I'm looking for him to potentially give Steph maybe 1 or 2 off nights, possibly. I don't know. Steph is Steph, so hard to stop.
Absolutely.
But let's see how much he mitigates Steph's success.
Yeah, let's see how that matchup is with one of the, if not the greatest shooter of all time. So, but we'll stay in the West. We'll talk about a game I was actually able to catch this time around: Phoenix versus LA. So, give me your thoughts on that, and just some. I'm not sure when game 2 is. I'm not sure if game 2 is tonight or tomorrow night, because I believe they try to get all those round 1 games kind of like back to back for the most part, which is fun for a fan perspective. But yeah, give me your thoughts on game 1 of Clippers and Suns.
When I talked about this with Bagdonis and Jerry, I don't know if I posed the question to both of them, but I know I posed it to at least one. Heading into this series, I had Suns in 6. I was concerned about how the Clippers would look with or without Paul George, because I mean it was either a report that came out over the weekend that Paul George is expected to be out for the entire series. I don't know if they're assuming that it goes to a game 7 or whatnot, but he's expected to be held out for at least most of the series, bare minimum. So I was a little bit concerned about the health that they had, even though I still thought they were a deeper team. They are not as top heavy, obviously, with with Durant, Chris Paul, Booker, and Ayton, but they still have depth and they still have like complementary pieces. And so I was a little bit of a question mark, but I posed the question to him if Kawhi Leonard could be like the best player. Like, is there a word where Kawhi Leonard is the best player in the series, even if Phoenix wins that? And he looked like the best player on Sunday. He had like 38 points on over 50% shooting. He hit multiple important buckets, at least down the stretch of that game. He was phenomenal. We've seen it before with Kawhi Leonard, like when he was in Toronto, when he was in San Antonio, especially in that Heat series in 2014, when those Dallas series, not too long ago, where he was an incredibly dominant force, even though they didn't. They did win. It's either did they win the series? I'm trying to remember. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But he was an incredible player in those series, and now that he's been fully healthy for the last few months, he's looked really good as time has gone on. And so it's like he's really that if he can get you 35, 40 with phenomenal production, then you're sitting pretty okay. You got the box score.
Yeah, pulling up the box score for the Clippers. I believe this should have been game one. Where's Kawhi? Where are you, Kawhi?
Yeah.
All right, so
no, that's the right box
here we
score.
is. All right, so
38 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists on 13 of 24 shooting. Like he was spectacular. But I also want to highlight one person, Russell Westbrook. He had probably one of the best games I've ever seen from a player who shot 3 of 19 because he genuinely, like, when we look at like box scores, right? Like we look at like, all right, how many points did they score and what did they shoot from the floor and stuff like that. But it's not like if you actually watch the game, there are times where a player could have bad production when it comes to the scoring column or even like the efficiency of it. And they still make winning plays down the stretch. And there were multiple times down the stretch. I mean, yeah, Russ's shot selection throughout that game was not good. It just wasn't. Like, it's not like he was taking great 19 shot. Like he just wasn't that good. I mean, he had a shot, I think it was like with 40 or 45 seconds left in like a pivotal moment that you don't want to shoot. And he just decided to hook it up from 3. And I'm just like, no, like don't do that. But like there was also multiple times down the stretch where he was getting important offensive, like he probably had, I think 2 or 3 offensive rebounds, like within the last like minute or 2 of the game. He was really, really good defensively. Like this is one of the best defensive games I think I've ever seen him play, just from like an effort standpoint. Like we've seen with Russell Westbrook in the past where he's had just way too many lapses, whether it's on or off the ball. Guys will blow by him. He'll lose a guy in the corner and he'll like move around and just Russ just loses him. And that's just like a fault to like your defensive awareness. But I thought just throughout this game that Westbrook's effort on the defensive end was really, really good. Like this is one of the best like games I've seen him play just from an effort standpoint. And he shot, I mean, it sucks that he shot 3 of 19. I don't expect that to happen again. Maybe not. I don't know. But I thought he was like really important, at least down the stretch of that game, albeit the shot selection that he had and his scoring and efficiency in that game. But it's also like when you get 19 points. I mean, I know he started out hot, but if you get 19 points from Eric Gordon, that's important. I like the Terrence Mann and Norman Powell minutes that they have especially when they're on the floor together. Bones Highland was a little bit like shaky throughout that game, but he still also finished a plus 13, although individual individual plus minus is a little bit tricky at times with who you're playing with on the floor. But Bones Highland was a little bit shaky at times. But just from a general standpoint, the 2 guys I want to highlight the most is Kawhi Leonard, because Kawhi Leonard was the best player on that floor. I don't think it was that close. And then Russell Westbrook, just from the effort on the defensive end and effort on the glass, at least down the stretch of that game, I just thought just two things that I thought were important and telling in the result of this game in the end, at least from the Clippers standpoint. We can get into Phoenix in a little bit, but what do you think?
Yeah, with Kawhi, like just to address the question, I mean, they had him play nearly 42 minutes, and I feel it's just the fact that Kawhi has been a part-time player. It seems like throughout his entire Clippers tenure, like, yeah, he tore his ACL on the postseason 2 years ago, and then you had him like taking off like a majority, just him just not being 100% available all the time, which kind of like calls into question that people love to say like, oh, 2019 was a fluke. He was like, people are saying he's overrated. But when Kawhi plays, if he plays at 100% effort, like this guy is easily one of the top players in the league. Probably still the best two-way player, in the league. But yeah, I have no doubt in my mind that he could take over a series and be the best player in the series, no matter win or lose for the Clippers. And yeah, to your point, he kind of has to be if he wants to give the Clippers a chance. From what I've read up on Paul George, it seems like they're trying their best to hold him out to the semis. But that's not to say that if it's a game 6 or it's an elimination game, they may activate Paul George even just to come off the bench or something like that. In the postseason, nobody's 100%. So at that point, depending on if he's ready to go, then I'll make the judgment call the day of, or just to see how the series is playing out. But I could easily see Kawhi replicating or even having a better performance in going into the rest of these series, because again, like for that team's sake, he has to be, and that would probably say a lot in terms of what having Kawhi Leonard on the Clippers meant to that franchise, or just the amount of sacrifice they had to get that guy on their team and to bring in Paul George as well. So that would say a lot about Kawhi. For Russ, 3-19 was like, my goodness, that's like, it seems like these days that's a Russ special. He gets a damn near triple double with nearly chucking up 20 shots a game, and it sucks because I was like, just like everybody else, like just the biggest fan of Russell Westbrook, and it's just heartbreaking to see how his career has played out the last couple of seasons. I feel him getting traded to the Lakers was like just bad in terms of him as a player. Like, and just for the Lakers in that point, but we can go on and on about that. I feel he could have had I feel him playing in a different environment, like when he played in Washington, then like I feel that was like a perfect place for him to be, so he could still be the guy and he was still able to be productive. And I feel it's really hard for him to kind of be in that, you're not that superstar MVP level player anymore, but you can still be Mr. Triple Double, but take a little less shots if it's not going in. And the fact that he never really developed, or the fact that he got worse as a shooter the older he got, has been calling into question. But I would say for Russ, absolutely, like, just we didn't even mention the clutch block he got on Booker. The funny thing is, it's like hell of a defensive play, but then you had Booker, from what I saw in the replays, that he was trying to get a call and he was yelling at the refs as Russ was blocking him, and then he slaps it off of his leg, and then it's Clipper ball, which I feel like is funny, and that's something we could probably talk about more when it comes to Phoenix. But yeah, like if Russ is gonna give you that kind of production, just albeit taking less shots, then if that's the Russ we're gonna see for the rest of the series, it adds another layer that Phoenix has to worry about and everybody has to keep their eyes on. So I feel that's real interesting. And yeah, I don't see Russ having that bad of a shooting game again, but I think it also comes out of fact of taking smarter shots and better shots.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, just going off the, I just completely lost my train of thought. Anyways, like for Phoenix, it was a weird CP game. It felt like they were playing, like, it felt like Phoenix was playing, not Phoenix. It felt like the Clippers were like in like the deepest of deep drops with Plumlee and even sometimes Zubats with like CP in the pick and roll. And as we've seen in the past, like CP can kill you from 10 to 15 feet. Even despite being 6 foot, he can rise up over anybody. And it just felt like he wasn't, I don't even know if it was comfortability, but he just wasn't very efficient. Open or not open. And it was like, I mean, yeah, he still had 11 rebounds and 10 assists. So it's like, I'm not complaining too much, but I think just from like a standpoint, if you're not going to get much from your bench, because the bench wasn't good, and I don't know why they went 11 deep with their bench, which was a little weird to me. Cause it's like, what, I mean, yeah, you're in the first game of your first playoff series. And so it's like, you're still trying to figure out like what your rotation is going to be, but it's like, when you don't have a deep bench to begin with, why are you going with 11 guys? Like, that's confusing to me in and of itself. Just some of the bench units that, like, you lose by 5 points. And, like, that could be the difference in a game. Like, again, you're looking at, like, Ish Wainwright minus 12 in 7 minutes.
Yeah, just the amount of negative plus minuses is just mind-boggling to me. And then the fact that, like, a couple of guys, like, Terrence Ross found his way to Phoenix, and you got TJ Warren, the Kevin Durant deal, that I feel like those guys are like formidable. And the fact that TJ didn't even get any playing time, I'm not sure. Well, it says coach's decision, so he's like healthy and ready to go. But I would just say, yeah, for Phoenix, I feel like in game one, Clippers just played harder, and they wanted it bad enough to get that game one victory, to make it easier for them going forward. But Kevin Durant, he had himself a really nice game. I'd like to believe, but yeah, but even for like guys like Booker and Paul, like Booker, he played like he was a really good defender in that game. When like
he was spectacular defensively.
Yeah, like tip passes, steals, getting blocks, and I feel that if that's the Booker we'll see, like that could mean like that can be a difference for the Suns, because I have the Suns taking the series because of just like the amount of offensive firepower, but I wouldn't be surprised depending on how things shake up. Like I could see the Clippers shocking the Suns, but I would say for sure that Like just that the offensive line, like, yeah, Chris Paul has to play better. Yeah, Book just needs to keep playing like how he played in game one. I'm not sure. Where is he at? I'm trying to just see. It says 26 points,
26.
4 steals. He got himself 3 blocks, and then he got
Yeah.
himself 1 rebound. But that's crazy. -6 on the plus minus. But
I think it was because of those. I mean, I want to say they had multiple like units where he was the lone starter on the floor and he was surrounded by 4 bench guys, and I don't think those minutes were good. I saw a stat like that. Like,
gotcha. And I mean that's like just addressing that point. Then it's like I know like they say the biggest weakness for Phoenix is like their lack of depth since
right.
like getting a Kevin Durant and everything. So I feel that like that starting lineup has the potential to make it all the way to the finals, just like dragging the rest of that team along with them.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like they can get bounced out at any point in the postseason just for their lack of depth. But if their stars are like, if they can just build off of what their stars did in game one, it could make it at least a lot harder for them to be an out in the postseason, especially if Devin Booker and Kevin Durant played like they did.
Yeah, well, like it was interesting. Did you freeze?
No, I'm still here. You got me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you froze for a second. No, I was gonna say like that's interesting. Like for some reason, I mean, I'm obviously not an NBA coach, nor will I ever be probably an NBA coach. I'm just too dumb to be an NBA coach. But like when you have Paul, Booker, Ayton, and Durant, like I would figure you're trying to stagger those minutes to where at least 2 of them are on the floor at the same time, and so you're not having to use so much of that depth, and you could still have like whether it's Paul or Durant or Booker and Ayton or Booker and Paul. Like if you can figure out a substitution pattern to where you're not having to go 11 deep and then surround Booker, in this case, at least in this case, it was Booker for the most part with 4 other bench players. It was also weird to me, like just looking at this, I didn't catch this during the game, but Josh Okogie only played 7 minutes and he was like one of the regular starters in the regular season. And Okogie, like for the second half of the season, has been good as kind of that 5th guy. Not that Torrey Craig's a bad option, but I would at least expect Okogie to have more of an important role in this rotation. I mean, again, it's game 1. I don't think you can't determine a series after a game 1. That's just not how any of this stuff works. But like, I'm sure as the series will go on, the adjustments that Monty will make will probably have Okogie more in that rotation. Maybe Bismack is kind of that top center behind, or maybe even Jock as kind of like that primary big guy behind Ayton. But again, just going 11 deep was weird to me. I mean, yeah, the starting lineup, obviously when you have that just monstrous quartet on the floor together, that's going to obviously carry you throughout the course of a game. But like, I wonder how Monty decides to stagger those minutes. I'd have to go back and look and see like what exactly he did with those bench units, but I would figure at least 2 of them would want to be on the floor at the same time. Unless if you're going to go with that one guy, that's like, if you're just going to go with one of those 4 on the floor, I'd probably choose Durant because he's Kevin Durant. But again, like, I just wonder what exactly how that will fare. Because I mean, yeah, you're right. The -6 with how Booker played. I mean, you're right. Booker was phenomenal defensively. One of the best defensive games I've seen him play. Just speaking of that, and so I want to see. I'm interested to see how he adjusts for game 2 and beyond, and just see what he does. Just with that aspect.
Who did you have taking this series? I know I talked with McGinnis about it last week, but I'm curious.
I had Suns and 6.
Suns and okay. I think I was under the same. Yeah, I would say I was under the same realm. But all right. So just wrapping up on that. That's probably like the most intriguing series for me in the first round for the most part. But another intriguing series is Lakers versus Grizzlies. Game 1, Lakers took it. I believe I want to say rather decisively, but they started pulling away. You had Ja get hurt off of a offensive foul with I forgot who took the charge on him. Was it
Davis?
It was it was Anthony Davis. So I'm curious just about how like now LeBron has probably the best percentage of playoff series wins after winning game 1. So, but it's also just increased different circumstances because now you don't know the availability of Ja Morant, which is kind of something that hindered the Grizzlies last year when it came because he got hurt, and then it's like it's up to Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson, and the rest of those guys to pick them up. add. Wait, no, that's the Suns. So we'll get rid of that. Bring up the box score for game one for the Lakers and Grizzlies. But yeah, spoke about before, like I feel like the Lakers, if they're 100% healthy, could absolutely make a run even as the seventh seed. But also, I did say that the Lakers are the seventh seed for a reason, and whether it's injuries or whether it's just how things fall, like it's kind of hard not to ignore that, but it's also hard to count out LeBron, especially if he has like a functioning supporting cast behind him. But yeah, so like this series is still very interesting. I feel I had the Lakers taking it because I feel like just unpredictability of especially now with unpredictability of Ja's availability and just how their lack of size now because they don't have Brendan Clark, they don't have Steven Adams, and then if AD's healthy the entire series, then it could just be absolutely just a problem for him. So I'm curious to how your thought process going into the series and then after game one, what you saw.
I had the Lakers in 7. It was again another one of those series that I went back and forth on. That in the Sacramento series, I couldn't decide. But again, I just ultimately went with Lakers in 7. For that reason that you mentioned about the size discrepancy. Like I don't know how much Memphis wants to rely on like Xavier Tillman or Santi Aldama to check, or even like Jaren Jackson Jr. to check Anthony Davis for 48 minutes over, or not at least not be for 30 to 35 minutes over a 7-game series. Like that is certainly a factor. Steven Adams was like a big part of their team. So was Brandon Clark. That would give them just 2 extra bodies that they could use in this instance. But after game one, I mean, obviously the jaw injury is unfortunate. It came out today, thankfully, that he doesn't have a fractured hand, and I think Taylor Jenkins said he is a game time decision. Whether he plays or doesn't play is still up in the air. I think that game's tomorrow. But like Austin Reeves, at least down the stretch of that game, I think he went 4 for 4, 4 for 5. I mean, he was really good. He's been a really good like just shot creator for him. He and AD had like a nice 2-man game working late in that game, which really kind of helped boo them.
I'm curious on your thoughts with Austin Reeves because I have a friend. He's not a Lakers fan. He's a big LeBron guy, but he's rooting for the Lakers by association. But just your quick opinion on Austin Reeves because he's a free agent to be, a restricted free agent to be. Do you see him going back to the Lakers after this season, or do you see him going elsewhere if the money's right?
I want to say the max the Lakers can offer him is, I think, 4 for 51, 4 for 55, something like that. It's not a lot. And like if another team like threw an offer sheet, the max that he could go would be, I think, 4 for 90, or it's something around that. I'd have to go
huge margin.
Yeah, it's a considerable margin either way. So, I mean, I like Austin Reeves as a player. I liked him coming out of Oklahoma. His last year, I actually was able to catch a lot of Oklahoma games. So he was one of like the few undrafted guys where I was like, hey, I know that guy. But like, no, he's a good player. I mean, the thing about Reeves that I like is he's poised and he's under control. Like, and he's also something that doesn't get talked about, I think, enough about him. Just at least from an offensive standpoint, like he's very concentrated and he's very intentional with what he does. Like he's hard to rattle, I think is like one of the bigger compliments that you can get as someone like a young guard, even though he did, I think, play 3-4 years in college. Like as a young guard in this league, or just as a young player in general, I think one of like the best compliments is you're under control and you don't feel rattled at all. And I think Austin Reeves is like a perfect representation of that. And the more he's getting minutes, as kind of like that secondary shot creator, that secondary initiator. I think it's important for him. And I think at least in the second half of the season, he's gotten a lot of reps and he's made the most of those reps. And you saw it again late in this game. And so, I mean, I like Austin Reeves, the player. It's funny, like the jokes that are made about like if he was on, I don't know, if he was on the Wolves, like what type of media attention that he would get. Cause I mean, the Lakers do get a lot more media attention than every other team, but like, I don't think we should discredit Reeves as a player for that. But anyways, I thought he was really good late in that game. Anthony Davis just as a rim protector, I mean, 7 blocks. I mean, that almost, I mean, that's like a perfect encapsulation of like what he did. He was all around the place, at least defensively, I thought throughout that game. I mean, there were times where I think, especially early in the game, where Jaren Jackson Jr. was up against like Rui and LeBron in the post, and he was having his way. But then you would put AD on him, and it was a completely different story. I mean, AD's obviously lengthier. He's sturdier than both James, with all due respect, and Rui, but he's not. He's just, Anthony Davis is just a different defender. In that regard, and I thought he was phenomenal defensively. I'm still keeping my prediction. I mean, obviously the Lakers won game 1, so Lakers in 7 still obviously on the table. All of these series predictions are still on the table, I guess, technically speaking. But like, if Ja's not 100% healthy, then you're asking a whole lot out of Desmond Bane. You're asking like, is your primary hub going to be Bane and Jackson? Like, I don't know what type of success that you could have, at least offensively, over a 7-game stretch against LeBron and Anthony Davis when those are your 2 primary hubs. But again, Josh should be healthy, I believe. And so hopefully he's able to remain healthy. I know he's had injury problems the last couple of years, just in the playoffs, unfortunately. But you're asking a lot out of like a lot of these guys. You're asking a lot out of Santi Aldama. You're asking a lot out of Xavier Tillman, who's not your traditional floor spacer and could get played off the floor like he did in this game, because Anthony Davis will play off him. Like, he's not, even if Xavier Tillman's just sitting in the corner somewhere, like Anthony Davis isn't going to respect that. And so he's still kind of that roaming rim protector that we all know and love him to be. But like, I just wonder like if Ja's not 100%, which it doesn't look like he is. I mean, there were reports that came out after the game that he couldn't even like put on his pair of socks. Like, he had to have someone else like undo his socks because his hand was so messed up. Like, especially if that's your shooting hand on a basketball court, like, I don't know are you going to be 70%, 80%? Like, what exactly are you going to be? I mean, and if he doesn't play in game 2, then well, guess what? Memphis is at fault of losing 2 games at home in a series where you're going up against, again, LeBron James and Anthony Davis. So it's like, I don't love Memphis's chance after, especially game 1. I think they needed to get game 1. And unfortunately it unraveled a little bit for them at the end, but this Lakers team is just really good, like even as a 7 seed, or at least they're a lot better than they were at the beginning of the season.
Oh yeah, for sure. A lot of those, it's funny, a lot of those guys that they traded for were actually key contributors. Like, you had going back up to the Lakers box score, you had Rui, who had himself a game. I know Desmond Bane said, let's see if he can replicate that tomorrow. Putting up 29. You had D'Lo, who gave him 19. Yeah, Austin Reeves obviously put up 20, and then Jared Vanderbilt, he didn't do a whole lot, but pretty much that's like their go-to guy for in terms of defensive purposes. But it seems
he took
like
the jaw assignment, and he was fairly good.
Yeah. So it's like, I believe Ja before the injury had like 18, but then a lot, like they put in damn near everyone. Obviously, you had these like the bottom 4 guys. I believe that was just garbage time, but then you had. But it's mainly like I feel like this Lakers team is really, really top heavy, and kind of like the same thing with the Grizzlies in that same respect. At least like at this point now, because a couple of your guys are hurt. But it's just like the Lakers, like in terms of upside for the series, seems like it's a lot better than the Grizzlies upside, because obviously Ja's availability, but also AD, because AD had that stinger go off in his arm, and it's like, all right, it seemed like it wasn't too bad, but it's like, what happens? Something else happens, because again, AD takes up a lot of space on that floor because he's a big dude, and then like it just seems like big guys in terms of like being injury prone. That's not the greatest combination, and that's kind of been like a lingering thing about his career. When he's healthy, then they make it to the finals and they win championship potentially, like they did in 2020 with the bubble and the break and all that. But I feel I have more confidence in AD being healthy at this point in the season than Ja, because just more on recency bias, if anything, because Ja this time last year, I believe it was like the semifinals or something like that. I believe against Golden State. Yeah, he goes down, and then I believe they bow out in 6, I believe. Mm-hmm. So I would say like Ja gets hurt. It seems like Ja has a thing about getting hurt in like the most important times of the season. And also, again, like I can't really say it's his fault, but also it's like a guy like that who relies so much on his athleticism, being able to jump out the gym, something like that. Like I feel like there's going to be times throughout his career it's going to come back and bite him. And I feel after game one, that's kind of like one of those instances. But I would say that's something that like the Grizzlies can clean up. But yeah, I feel like the Lakers in terms of playoff experience, and then like just the unpredictability of, like I said before, with Ja and all that. I feel like I'm a little bit more confident with the Lakers, and like I've kind of known from experience from like counting out LeBron. Then I feel like this time around, it's not like how it was in 2021 when he actually has his crew together with him and like people are healthy for the most part. So I wouldn't be surprised if I see the Lakers go and take care of Memphis. But I won't count Memphis out and make it in a series at the very least.
Yeah, you shouldn't, but they need to take game 2.
All right, so I would say we'll move on. One that's I'm not even sure if you would want to touch upon Wolves and Nuggets all that long anyway, because Nuggets took care of business. I believe they beat Minnesota by like 30 or 20 or 30, something like
29,
that.
29, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, my goodness. So like we don't even have to talk about them for too long anyway. We can just jump into the Eastern Conference a little bit. But I'd say the one thing for the Wolves is that Anthony Edwards has to be the best player on that team. That's all. That's all I'm really gonna say about it.
I don't disagree.
Okay, good. All right, so
when all 5 of your starters plus your top bench player scoring double figures, no one scores more than 24 points. You all have somewhat equal production, at least in the scoring column. You're probably sitting in a pretty good spot if you're Denver. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. I feel like Denver has like a really good shot. Like this year could be their year. They make it to the finals, or at least make it back to the Western Conference Finals. But yeah, so
possibly.
So we'll move over to the Eastern Conference side, and we could talk about the Bucks in your Heat. So I didn't get a chance to take a look at the game for very long, but from my understanding, Giannis is out indefinitely with that whole back issue that he has going on. And
he's not out indefinitely. He actually might play tomorrow. I mean, he got ruled out with the contusion. So what happened was, I mean, you probably saw it already. It made rounds on social media for different reasons, but he landed wrong on his back after Kevin Love drew a charge. He still played in the game. Like it was like he still played for the next couple of minutes. Got taken out. They went to the locker room. He came back to the bench, and then he went to the locker room again, and then he was ruled out with a back contusion. They said yesterday, it was either yesterday or Sunday after the games that, I think the X-rays came back negative, and I don't want to make assumptions, but I think he will play game 2. But just from this game by itself, I mean, as I'm again watching this as a Heat fan, I'm like, all right. I watched this at least part of this game with a roommate of mine, and I looked at him. I was like, I have no idea what the heck's gonna happen in this game or this series. Because I mean, heading into the series, I wasn't obviously very optimistic with Miami. I had Bucks in 5. I thought I was being generous. With Miami getting a game. I mean, Miami has been one of the most frustrating teams all season, and I don't say that because I watch every game. I say that just because it feels like once they get 2 steps forward, they take 3 steps backwards, and it's just like, all right, like what exactly are we doing here? The shooting's been terrible. The defense in the second half of the season's been terrible. It's just like there's so many inconsistencies. I mean, that first play-in game when they allowed 22 offensive rebounds to Atlanta, it was just like, what exactly when you get out rebounded by 24 in a play-in game.
I'm sorry, the damn sun is killing me. My goodness, I was lighting up. I was looking like I was like turning into the Human Torch for a second. I'm sorry.
It's the heat, man. It's the heat.
I was gonna have it hanging out. I'm checking it out on the screen, and then look. God, all right, my fault.
Yeah, thankfully, my window's behind me, and so it's not in my face.
Dude, in the summertime, man, it's gonna be absolute hell because there's a building that's just not tall enough for it's gonna be this time. No, maybe another hour. the sun's gonna be a little bit more to the right in the summertime. It's gonna be just beaming in this room, just like that. I don't have shutters, so like so like the heat gonna kick my ass. But no, okay, but yeah, like a couple of injuries came out of that game. Like, yeah, okay, so Giannis got the back contusion. Knowing him, he's gonna be. I feel like he's gonna play through. He played through just about anything, or like he's just like he knows how to remain healthy in that regard. But I would say also Tyler Hero went down, and I'm not sure if it was a broken hand. I know I saw the clip. I was able to watch bits and pieces. I saw that. I saw at least that much. And people were trying to say like he hit a 3 with a broken hand, and I was like, I
actually thought he hit it. I thought I think I tweeted something like, "Oh my god, how did he hit that 3?" But I was like, wait,
you gotta watch it.
I realized a minute later, I was like, wait, he didn't make that 3.
No, see, the funny thing is, it was that Trevor Ariza did that exact same thing like 9 years ago. And the funny thing is that the commentary was going crazy because they actually thought he hit it because he was on the Wizards at the time, and they're like, "Oh my god, he caught it!" And nobody's celebrating. Everybody's walking back to the bench. He's like, "Never mind, the game is over. He did not hit like that." That was just absolutely hilarious to me. I knew he didn't hit it. I knew he kind of like front rimmed it, and like it looked like it from at least from that angle, it looked like he cupped it. But I want your opinion. You being like, since you're a Heat fan, hearing Reggie Miller say that Tyler Hero is a bigger loss to the Heat than Giannis is to the Bucks.
I understand what he's trying to say, but he's saying it the wrong way. Like, if you contextualize it and if you frame it in a way, I'm not saying I agree with what he's saying. I disagree a little bit, but Miami hasn't scored. They were last in scoring. They were a bottom 5 offense this season. They're the antithesis of modern day basketball when it comes to just high scoring games. I mean, they just don't score a lot of points. Their shooting has completely fallen off. They were the most efficient 3-point shooting team last year. They were a bottom, I think, 5 3-point shooting team this year. Or I think they may have climbed up to a little bit. I have to go look at the final rankings because they were better in the second half of the season. But like, Tyler was absolutely their best and most consistent shooter. And so just from that perspective itself, Miami loses one of their best shooters, or I would say probably their best shooter. And I mean, yeah, you still have playoff Jimmy Butler, who is just a different animal. Bam was much better in the second half, but like your two best players are non-shooters, but then you're having to rely on Gabe Vincent and Max Strus and the skeleton of Kevin Love, and like you're having to rely on guys who haven't been consistent shooting this year. Again, but like I also say that I disagree with Reggie because Giannis is Giannis, and even though like Giannis is Giannis, so even though you're without Giannis, like you should be able to win that game. Or I mean, like it's still a huge loss, but like Giannis is an MVP candidate. Like if you take him out of this series,
it gives Miami a puncher's chance.
Or it gives Miami a puncher's chance. So it's like I guess I'm like contradicting myself with what I'm saying right now. I mean, I understand what Reggie's trying to say. He just framed it terribly.
Yeah, you're trying to say.
I don't even know what. I'm trying to figure out like a better way to say it. Like Tyler Hero's loss is bigger to the Miami Heat than Giannis's to Milwaukee. Maybe that's a better way of phrasing it. I mean, I don't know because I mean, again, Giannis is an MVP candidate. Tyler's the third leading scorer on a team, but this team also just can't score points. They scored 130 points for the third time all season, or for the fourth time all season on Sunday. They shot 60% from the field and 60% from the 3-point line. Shit that's just wildly unsustainable over a 7-game series. And so that's likely not going to happen again. And I mean, yeah, most of that was without Hero for the second half. But like if Giannis is out, even though like Miami has a much better chance, I guess.
I feel like it really evens the playing field.
I say much better chance. I still think
Milwaukee takes it.
Miami loses in 5 or 6.
I would say, just to like kind of try to look at Reggie's claim, is just kind of like on the fence. It seems to me that he says that Tyler Hero is much more valuable to the Miami Heat than Giannis is to the Bucks.
Right. That's exactly what he's saying. He framed it poorly.
Yeah, he's trying to say like, oh,
Yeah.
Tyler Hero, he's just as good as Giannis. He means just as much to his team as Giannis. So yeah, because you're never gonna see Tyler Hero win an MVP. You're never gonna
No,
you're not gonna see Tyler Hero lead a team to the finals and win a championship.
goodness,
But
no.
unless he grows like 3 feet and like crazy stuff, right? So with Tyler Hero and or no, with Giannis anyway, I feel Reggie's looking at it just through a lens of just the guy and the names on that team. Because Chris Middleton, to me, hasn't been the same and still recovering from his knee injury. I feel like he he's not able to get back because I believe he missed like 40 games this season because of injury, something like that. I
Yeah,
think
it
like
was
two
like the
20 games
first.
since.
Yeah, it was like
So
it was like 40 of like the first something. Yeah, but he played for a majority of the second. You're right.
yeah, so like just stuff like that. Like if he was healthy or before, if it was pre-injury Chris Middleton, I could see him stepping up to be like that number one guy for a few games throughout a series with Giannis out, and then Drew Holiday would just slide in as the number two because Drew Holiday, one of the more underrated players in the league, at least to me. And I was saying that even when he was back in the Pelicans,
Yeah, me
like
too.
one of the best perimeter defenders, and like he can go off in a game, but just what he adds to that team cannot be underestimated and understated. So, but if Giannis is out, I feel Miami has a far better chance to at least take more than a few games. I had Miami in 5 as well because I was just on the sole belief that Jimmy Butler would will them to at least one game. But
You mean Milwaukee in 5?
yeah, Milwaukee in 5. I'm
You
sorry.
said Miami in 5.
I mean, hey, with Giannis
I
out, you
wish
never know.
Heat in 5. No.
But I mean, I if he's out for majority of the time, then I don't like. I will give Miami a puncher's chance at the very least if Giannis has to miss a game or two. But also, it's like again at the end of the day, it's Giannis. I understand that, but I would be willing to at least say that Miami can make it a lot more competitive. Like, and that would be a game I would love to see if Giannis didn't play and you just see Miami and in like a 7 seed version of the Milwaukee Bucks go up against each other head to head. But yeah, I feel like it also sparked a new level of discussion and in terms of like the charge rule and all that. I think it's a load of BS that people are like talking about like the charge rule getting alienated and getting taken out of the rule book and all that. But I feel like that's just dumb. I want to hear your thoughts and opinions.
Don't even get me started, dude. I've spent way too much brain power over the last 24 hours with this charge. I'm completely with you. Like what exactly are we doing here? Like, are we supposed to just eliminate like help defense? Is that like because the charge thing? If this happened to like Max Strus or I don't know, name some. If this happened to like Torian Prince, would like if they got hurt incidentally by from a charge or whatever, like would we be talking about this?
Don't think so.
All right. My point is, it's like Giannis. The charge with Giannis was weird because it's like he barreled into Love, and like as he's in midair, he like does like a 180, falls on his back, and it's just like that. He just landed wrong. Like, why are we blaming the charge for this? Like, I feel like way more players. I mean, with Ja too. Like, Ja landed on his hand wrong. Again, it's not. Why is that all of a sudden the defensive player's fault? Like, I feel like we see way more players get hurt contesting layups. Like, someone gets incidentally, like if someone's trying to swipe for a block, they get hit in the face or they get poked in the eye or something. Like, again, it's not incredibly common either way, but it's just like, what exactly are we doing here? Like, defense nowadays is so hard to play because how much space has to be covered because of players just beyond the 3-point line. And like the refs don't even get the verticality stuff right. Like if a player goes vertical for like at the rim, like for contesting a layup and someone goes vertical, they'll get hit in the gut or they'll get hit in a way to where they automatically like fold. And it's like, okay, if you fold, yeah, your arms are probably going to hit so-and-so, like the offensive player's arms. It's like, that's called a foul. It's like, no, I'm going straight up, but I get hit in the chest. I mean, yeah, that's what you're taught as amateur basketball players, to go through the chest. Don't fade away and make it easier for them to block you. Like, go through the chest, go tough. And it's like they don't even get that right. So it's like, why exactly? Like, what are we trying to make this shit way harder on defense players? Like when they're already at like somewhat of a disadvantage? Like, are we just like gonna let them just go for a layup? Like, what are we doing here with this? Why are we trying? We see 5 to 10 charges a game from both teams. Like, no one gets hurt. No one cares. But then 2 of the league's best players incidentally get hurt on freak injuries that happen all the time. And we're now all of a sudden like, no, get rid of the charge. Like, what are we talking about here? What are we doing here with this? Like, Paul George, for instance, got hurt on a layup attempt. Someone was trying to block a layup. Obviously, the stanchion was there, and they moved that back. But it's like, we're not going to ban layup. Like, what exactly are we talking about? Why are we keep trying to change like the entirety of the NBA and whatever the fuck, like, just because someone gets hurt when it's just a freak injury? That's something that happens. Like, again, Giannis drew a charge like 3 or 4 possessions before that play. Was that like a dirty play? Should that be like what? Like, what exactly are we doing here with this? Like, seriously, like, I mean,
Hey.
I also say this from a player, or not a player. I mean, when I played in high school, I loved drawing charges. Nothing got me more fired up than drawing a charge. That I was just like the energy guy. But then again, like, I'm a Heat fan. I fucking love charges. All right, I'm saying this from a biased perspective. Kyle Lowry, Kevin Love, we like drawing charges here. That's just we're weirdos. We're weirdos. But like,
hey, I got Marcus Smart with me, so go ahead.
Like, what exactly? Like, are we trying to make this shit way harder for defenses than it already is? Because it's like, it doesn't. The rationale doesn't make sense. I mean, I could see you want to move the restricted area out or whatever the case is. That's fine. I don't really care about that. But like, it completely eliminate charges. Like, why? Why?
Plus, like my thing is that it just doesn't make a lot of sense. I feel like it's just
it does.
People are getting angry about like these kinds of things that happen, but it's also like I know you've probably seen the threads of memes of like Giannis if there's no charge calls, just like an NFL running back just mowing over defenders and all that stuff. So it's like I feel that over the course of the years, like they don't highlight or just don't like they value high scoring. They value people shooting threes and offense way more than anything. And when like the Pistons went on their run of dominance for the early 2000s, they had games where like both teams barely scored 80 and stuff like that.
Right. That's how it was in like the late 90s. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like at that point in time, like I understand you wanted to add more protection for offensive players, like don't getting into somebody's space and protecting shooters and stuff like that. I completely understand that. But then that whole revolution of offensive basketball has allowed players like James Harden and Joel Embiid, obviously funny enough, 2 guys on the same team, to be able to manipulate that, and just allowing no charges would be able to allow more guys like Giannis and LeBron, even though to a degree LeBron doesn't get, I would say a lot of people say LeBron doesn't get enough calls, but it's just like the fact that these guys are so big and so strong that people wouldn't be able to stop them if it wasn't for charges. And that's like people say charges are bailout plays and like it initiates flopping. No, it initiates players having to remain in control of what they're doing, because there's times that Giannis gets a whole lot. Like when I was watching the Celtics and Bucks series of last year in this, I believe, semifinals, and like the amount of charges or the amount of just like those kinds of calls being made because Giannis just loves to go into the lane and then like loves to like initiate contact and make it to the rim, and it's so hard to stop. I feel the charges are the kind of like that even playing field, because if you allowed somebody like Giannis to just have free reign of what he wants to do, that guy can easily go for like 50, 60 points a night in his sleep. No threes taken, none of that. Because the guy can already make it to the damn rim on 2 steps after he crosses half court. What else do you want somebody to do? Because like if he got a jump shot, he's the most unguardable player ever. So I feel just like that's just not like, I feel like that's such just a bad take for people to say like abolish the charge. Say somebody like, heaven forbid, somebody broke their arm shooting threes. Are we going to ban 3-point shooting?
Right. That's my
like,
point. Like, what exactly are we talking about here? We see every game. They're not bailout plays. It's called team effing defense.
Yeah.
Sacrificing your body for at least like a defensive. It's called help defense. Like, we're supposed to rotate over. Like, yeah, guys are going to sacrifice their body for that stuff.
And it allows.
Giannis almost avoided it too, but like again, like we can't, just because these guys are incidentally getting hurt because of how they land, not because of the charge itself, but how they land when they're in the air. We can't just all of a sudden like alter just everything about basketball. It doesn't make sense to me, because again, freak injuries and shit like that happens. It happens, and it's unfortunate. I wish Giannis didn't get hurt. I never wish injury upon anybody. That's like the worst thing any fan or whatever can do, because it like I want to see these guys at their best. I want to see these teams at their best always, 100%. That's what makes this shit fun. But it's like, if they get hurt while landing, why are we all of a sudden saying abolishing the charge when it's not even because of the charge itself? It's how you land. Like, I don't get it. Like, even if it went up for a contested layup and Giannis somehow just, I mean, the thing with Love and with AD is like, they got there just in time. Like maybe a half second too late, maybe even a quarter second too late, but it felt like they got there just in time. And so like there's screenshots even before Giannis went up, like Love was like practically planted where he was going to draw the chart. So again, it's not like it would be completely, this conversation would be completely different if like Love ducked under him while Giannis was in midair. That wasn't the case. And even then, that's called a block. And so it's like, what?
Yeah.
We're going to eliminate blocks too. If we eliminate charges, we have to eliminate blocking calls, right?
Yeah. So I feel there will come a time for the NBA to kind of like, they'll have to look at themselves in the mirror and be like, okay, we're going to have to like do something, because it just feels like it's like you get penalized for being a good defensive player in
yes.
today's day and age. Like they always say like, oh, we'd love to have 3-and-D guys, and that's like the prototypical NBA player. You can play defense and you can shoot threes, but it just seems like they're more caring about guys who can shoot threes over guys who can play defense. Like hence a lot of teams that aren't very tall or very big in terms of length, they try to prioritize shooting. The Rockets from a couple years ago when Russ was there, yeah. Golden State now, I would probably even say Miami a little bit when it comes to just like lack of size, but then you have going up
Miami
against
is small.
Yeah, and then going up against a team like Milwaukee with like the tallest dudes in the league, and then like half of these guys can shoot threes. You got Brook Lopez, 7 foot something, can shoot threes. So I would just say I would love to see guys like, not even like to the point of like Tony Allen or somebody who just strictly defense, but just being able to like get back to like maybe like late 2010s, early 2010s kind of things, where guys like that and like defense was still rewarded, like the grit and grind Grizzlies of like the early 2010s. Like those guys prided themselves on defense. So I feel defense, like teams can't look at like being a great defensive team as a form of identity like that anymore, or it doesn't carry the same weight, unfortunately.
Yeah, it doesn't.
So that's just my take on it all.
I like the offense. Like I've been on record saying like I don't mind NBA offenses nowadays. I know it could turn some people off, but like, and just in this realm, it's very hard for defenders to defend sometimes, because it's like, I mean, we see it with guys like getting superstar calls with like they flail their arms out and they get hit or whatever, and it's like those guys are smart. Yeah, it's like they're smart. They're smart for doing it because they know they're going to get that call, but it's like just from an aesthetically pleasing standpoint, it's not always the most appealing, and so it's like I get it from that perspective, but like I don't mind how NBA offenses operate, but it's just so much harder to defend. Like that's what it bugs me when people say that like teams don't play defense nowadays, because it's just like that's just not true. I mean, yeah, some teams are much better than others at defending players, and it's just like you have to alter your schemes to make it work with the roster and personnel that you have. But like it's just so much harder to defend because of this 3-point line, and it's like, and how space is used, and so that's where it's like, why exactly are we trying to make it even like eliminating the charge would make it 17 times harder to defend when it's already hard to defend. It's just like the principle of this is bad. Like the process of this is bad. Like, again, I don't mind NBA offenses that much. Like I watch a lot of college basketball offenses are not on the same plane, like just in terms of like aesthetically pleasing, like it's just not the same game. But like I don't mind the scoring, but like again, you can't make it way, way, way harder for defenders to defend if you eliminate the charge. Because like what? Okay, but then like they're gonna eliminate other shit because of this, and it's just like we're going down a slippery slope here that I don't think we would want to go down if that were the case. But.
No, yeah, we'll just leave it at that in terms of that series. Like Giannis, the Bucks are up. Actually, no, it was Miami who took the first game, right?
Yeah. Miami won by 13. Again, they shot 6% from the three. They shot 15 to 25 from the 3-point line. They shot 60% from the field. They had plenty of contributions from. I mean, Jimmy had 35, 5 and 11. Bam had 22 points. The majority of that coming in the second half. Gabe Vincent and Max Strus were both very good. Gabe Vincent, I think, went 4 or 5 from deep. The skeleton of Kevin Love had 18 points off the bench. I haven't been the biggest Kevin Love guy, if I'm being just completely honest. I've been on record about this before, so this is new. But I'm glad that he had 18 and 8. Like, if Miami can continue to get all of this production without Tyler, they will absolutely have somewhat of a puncher's chance to at least win another game.
You guys have home court advantage now, so there's that at least.
I mean, but again, like if you have the talent discrepancy that Milwaukee has compared to Miami, like it's just. It's such a steep mountain to overcome, especially now that you're without one of your best players.
No, you gotta take it one game at a time. If I'm Eric Spoelstra, that's pretty much what you're saying.
You gotta. You have to throw the kitchen sink at Giannis. You have to throw the kitchen sink just at Milwaukee in general. Just with how Miami's gonna press, they're gonna play zone, they're gonna hedge, switch, whatever. They're gonna do whatever they can to try to get Giannis and Co out of rhythm. And you're gonna have to in this type of series. But I just don't know. I don't think Miami has enough firepower in the end, so I'm still going Bucks in 5.
I will ask this just to kind of like wrap a bow on this whole segment. It's that Miami was pretty much one shot away from making it to the NBA Finals once again, to being just in the position they are now. As you were somebody who's an avid Heat fan and an avid Heat basketball watcher, what happened over the course of the
I'd say a part of it is the biggest part of it was shooting regression. Again, you look at I don't have the percentages pulled up right now, but if you look at Miami led the league in 3-point percentage last year, but then every single player, Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, Duncan Robinson, whose rotation's been fluctuating, Caleb Martin,
the contract got Duncan Robinson there.
Yeah, not a good contract. Kyle Lowry, like all of these guys, their shooting just fell off a cliff. And it's like when you have all of that, I mean, you expect it from some of it. Like Strus doesn't have the best track record of shooting. Just like if you go back and look at like the college numbers, same thing with Vincent. And so it's not like these guys were ho-hum shooters their entire lives. And then this 1 year is just one bad year for them. Like Vincent wasn't the most consistent shooter when he was at, I think it was UC Santa Barbara when he was in college. He wasn't the most consistent shooter when he was in Stockton, playing for like the Kings G League. And then he then joined with Miami. And so like these guys haven't been the most consistent shooters in their lives. I mean, even Tyler regressing. Again, Tyler's been one of Miami's best spot up threats this entire season. I mean, he's near 40% from the 3-point line. He was a 93% shooter from the free throw line. And so it's like these guys, I mean, all of them regressed, but then like I've gone on record saying before that a part of it's just like they didn't replace PJ Tucker. They tried to do that with the Caleb Martin, the Max Strus into the starting lineup late in the season is kind of like that 3-4 with Jimmy Butler. I mean, they tried to do it with Kevin Love a little bit too. That obviously didn't work. And so it was like when you don't replace all of that, like you either need to have like really, really, really good defense. And even Miami's defense wasn't that good. I mean, they relied on forcing turnovers. Like it wasn't like the beginning of the season, I think pre-All-Star break, they were a top 5, top 10 defense. But a lot of that was because they were forcing a lot of turnovers and getting out in transition. And that was like the best way to generate offense for them. But even in the second half, they weren't able to do that much. I mean, when they acquired Kevin Love, they had to completely alter their defensive scheme just to cater to him on the floor. And so that obviously didn't help. I mean, Miami went away from playing zone, which Spo's talked about before. He's played zone to kind of try to figure out a new way league-wide to play defense against some of these guys, kind of like what you and I are talking about on how it's so hard to guard all these guys. And so they kind of operated to zone to kind of try to mitigate some of that. And so when the roster wasn't constructed well, they're not big, they're not athletic. you're going to need shooting if that's the case, like they had last year. If you're not big or athletic, I mean, Miami was a fairly good defensive rebounding team. They weren't against Atlanta in the playing game, obviously, but like they were a decent rebounding team throughout the season. But like there's so many holes in the roster. It's just a poorly constructed roster. And like they didn't replace, like PJ Tucker was one of their most important players last year, and they just didn't replace him. Not that Caleb Martin's a bad player. I love Caleb Martin. But he was like he was miscast in a role that I don't know if he should have been in to begin with. And looking in hindsight, and so it was just a bunch of things that happened. But I would say the biggest thing was like the shooting, the lack of athleticism, the lack of size. Because I mean, if Miami's not shooting the ball well, it's easier to help off those shooters when you have Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo on the floor together. I mean, Miami also didn't have a backup big they still really don't have one. Maybe Kevin Love. I mean, Kevin Love's been fine as a backup big, but they have too many holes in the roster, and it's a flawed roster, and it's something they're going to have to address in the offseason. But just all of that kind of combined together as a long answer with a lot. And I know there's a lot to unpack there, but it hasn't been the most enjoyable season for me.
I would say that it's actually funny thinking about it. It's that like Miami has been like bipolar. It's like off and on, because 2020 make it to the bubble, or they make it to the finals in the bubble. 2021 they I believe Giannis and co got him out of the playoffs.
Swept him in the first round, and it was one of the worst series in Heat history. Like Miami had a point differential of minus 82 in that series, and they lost the first game by 2 points in overtime. They got rolled in games 2, 3, and 4.
Crazy. And then again, like I said before, one shot between an NBA Finals and then running into the Bucks again in the first round, and then we can only wait and see how 2023 is going to treat Miami. But 2024 seems like it's going to be on the upside for Miami anyway. I can picture Miami going out and making some moves. I feel like Pat Riley is not content with watching how this team is constructed, especially to all the points that you alluded to. He's probably going to look at maybe getting another shot creator, and probably looking at like getting some more size on that Miami Heat team. Because I do like when the Heat are good, or at least like I believe like any good Heat team is like a fun Heat team to watch. So like, I feel like it's only better for the NBA.
You're right. They're going to star hunt, but look at the roster again. You can't say you're going to go out and get a Damian Lillard. I'm just throwing that name out there because he's been linked to the Heat for like 3 or 4 seasons now. But like, you can't go out and star hunt when the rest of the league doesn't value your assets the way that you do. And like, that's how it is with every team. Like, you're inherently going to value your guys more than, let's say, the Suns, like they're just you're gonna value your own guys more. But like, when you look at the Heat roster with how incredibly flawed this looks, our team's gonna be willing to take on, like, do teams want Tyler Hero as the main centerpiece in a trade package? I sure shit, no matter what anyone else tell you, no, they're not gonna trade Bam or Jimmy. They're not gonna do that. I'm telling you that right now. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm 99.99% sure they wouldn't trade either of those guys without their request, which I don't think either of them would request to do that, at least at this stage of their careers. And so it's like, is a team going to really want Tyler Hero as your primary trade asset? Or are they going to want, like, if they're like Tyler Hero, if you keep Vincent, Max Strus are free agents, but like, I'm just throwing their names in there for the sake of conversation. But like, our teams are really going to want these assets? Because I don't think so. At least I wouldn't if I were a GM, because it's like, when the team's requesting to trade to you, like, hey, I'll give you this, this, and this. And it's like, all right, why are you giving me this? Like, how does this help me? Why would I give you my star player or one of my star players for this? Like, and of course you could throw picks in there. Miami has 3 eligible picks to trade this offseason. They can trade 2023, 28, and 30, I think. So it's either that or 29 and 31, one of the two years. But anyways, like, there's some picks to trade, but it's like, how valuable are these assets going to be? And then if you want to get off a guy like Kyle Lowry, or if you want to get off a guy like Duncan Robinson, which you'll need to get the money match in these types of trades, well, then you're probably going to have to attach assets. You attach your best assets like these picks to at least get off them. And I don't think, like, if you trade Duncan Robinson and 1 first-round pick, or Duncan Robinson and 2 first-round picks or whatever. Like, that's not going to be appealing to anybody. It's just not. Like, it's a salary filler for sure, but that's not going to appeal to the mass. Like, 37-year-old Kyle Lowry, or however old he is, I can't remember off the top of my head. If you attach him to a hero or something, like, that just brings Hero's value down because you're attaching that asset. So it's like Pat can try to do a trade. Like, you could try to swing for a star, but it's like, what exactly, like, these other teams have better packages. It was the same thing with the Donovan Mitchell thing in the offseason. Miami was looking at, or at least reportedly looking at, trading for Donovan Mitchell, but it's like, one, Danny Ainge and Pat Riley effing hate each other, so that's only going to work very well for Miami. And then 2, guys like the Knicks and the Cavs have better assets to offer, and plenty of other teams do, just outside of those 2. So it's like, you could try to swing for a star, but what's the success rate? What do you think the success rate, like, I'm saying this as a rhetorical question, but like, what do you think the success rate would be when you don't have very valuable assets at all outside of Jimmy and Bam, and the contracts that you have to match those offers are, again, Duncan Robinson for, I think, 17 or 18 million, Kyle Lowry for 29 million. Like, what? 37-year-old Kyle Lowry. It's not like he was in prime Toronto. Like, what? How are you going to view this shit? Or how are other GMs going to view this shit? Because it's not necessarily the prettiest thing in the world. Like, Caleb Martin's probably your next best asset, or one of them on contract for next year outside of Hero. And it's like, I don't know if Miami can afford to trade Caleb Martin, but guess what? They might have to. Same thing with Hero. But again, if you're another team looking at this, like, what do you think of these Heat assets? I wouldn't think highly of them, but that's just me.
Best bet, and probably get Oklahoma City on the phone.
Yep. But then you're dealing with Sam Preston. He's going to make you throw in a first-round pick because he's Sam Preston.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of like been how they've been wheeling and dealing anyway. But I feel if anything, but I feel like eventually they're gonna have to do something with those picks. Like, just to talk about Thunder for just a quick second, but no, but yeah, and there's just a lot of things that the Miami's gonna have to think about going into the offseason. But we still have to see how the playoffs turn out for them. But okay, so just kind of moving on a little bit, we're gonna just talk about Celtics and Hawks for just like half a second, because more or less for me, like I said, all I really needed to say last week, sweep. But something I did enjoy was that like just seeing Tatum and Brown play how they did, and just seeing how that whole team played how they did. And granted, it's the first round against a team that you, like, a lot of people expect you to beat. But I would say that these guys need to be 100% just in control, and just do not let teams linger around. If you like, and this kind of goes for any team that are kind of hell bent on winning a championship, or all the championship teams, they did their damnedest to make sure, like, and like somebody like Shaq, who had no problem saying it when during his time with the Lakers, that like, if we beat you by 20, I'm not gonna be happy about that. So like, he wants to like beat teams by 40 and all that extra stuff. But when I'm saying that is that these guys are not letting a single possession get away from them. They keep piling it on, and I just want them to build confidence, like, through this series. It's just like to send a message to like the other couple of teams they're most likely going to have to run into, with a team like Philadelphia and then a team potentially in Milwaukee. I want these guys to send a message through the whole postseason that they should have won the championship last year. But and I wouldn't even say it's bias in saying that, obviously me rooting for the Celtics anyway, but I feel that they had every opportunity to be NBA champions last year, and they allowed it to slip away. And I want them to play like they are not allowing an opportunity like that to pass them up again.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Like, so just going back to what we started with, you had Celtics sweeping Atlanta?
Yes.
Okay. I think Boston 5.
But I mean,
I just foresaw like a game 3 or 4 in Atlanta where they just like go off from deep. But other than that, like, yeah, we don't have to spend too long on this game. I just don't think this is a good matchup for Atlanta. Probably one of the worst that they could have. Especially when like Trey DeJounte, like, I mean, you have Derek White and Marcus Smart. with the ability to check both of them. And then outside of those two, Atlanta just doesn't have much shot creation, and they have to rely so much on the offensive glass, at least in this series. But then again, Boston, they led the league in defensive rebounding percentage in the regular season. So it's like this is just a bad matchup. Tatum and Brown are phenomenal. Like Derek White, if you're getting 24 points out of Derek White. I mean, Derek White's been awesome this year. I think he's probably been Boston's third best player, just personal opinion. But like, he just from what he's done defensively as a shot blocking guard, what he does just on the ball, he's been phenomenal. Like, I just think this is a bad matchup for Atlanta.
I wouldn't put it past it going 5, like just to your point, because I feel like any team has a really good chance to win on their own home floor in the postseason, even if it's just a game. So I'd set out the most it's 5, but if the Celtics play how they're supposed to play, then I see it being quick. But I just wanted to kind of like, I want them to make it quick. Don't allow them to hang around. That's all I want from them. But
hey, listen, they almost blew that lead. That's in the second half. Yeah, it got to 12, so it wasn't like super close, but they were up 30.
Still,
so like,
yeah. It's like, oh no, it's the last season all over again. It's just been so weird. The last thing I'll say about it, but it's been so weird. Like I've like had a fan experience. It's like a tale of 2 or 3 different seasons. So yeah, the beginning of last year when they were just barely getting like up to 500, like absolutely like just blowing big lead after big lead, losing. And it's like, and then they flip the switch, the turn of the new year. And then they're the best team in the NBA for that stretch. I'm like, what is happening? And then they make it all the way to the finals, and then you come back down to earth because you lose in the finals.
Yeah.
Then back up because you're one of the best teams in the NBA again. You held on to the first seed for a long time in the Eastern Conference. And then there was those stretches where it was like they were kind of like I would say whimpering a little bit. They were losing to teams that they shouldn't have lost to, but they were playing really good against teams that were above 500, which I thought was like, okay, so do you guys want to be good or you guys want to be bad? So
right.
But it's the good that hopefully they hit the ground running throughout the postseason. So it seems like after game 1 it was like that. But so I'm just gonna leave it there. Okay, so we have Knicks in Cleveland. I believe New York took game 1.
They did.
And I would say on the Eastern Conference side, that's probably the most intriguing. Like I always feel like the 4 or 5 matchups are obviously like just always so interesting because of course it's like those guys are neck and neck with each other. But I don't know what your opinions or who you had coming out of that series. I had Cleveland beating New York, but just tell me what you saw in game 1.
I had Cleveland in 6. And I did the preview for the site. Go check that out at vendettasportsmedia.com. But I had Cleveland in 6 because I didn't know, like the biggest factor for me was I didn't know how healthy Julius Randle would be. And he looked more spry and more like healthy than I thought he would in game 1, which I thought was important. But something I also mentioned in that preview, and I mentioned it on Friday to Jerry, was Cleveland's not a good defensive rebounding team, despite having Mobley and Allen on the floor. And the Knicks were one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the entire league, with Mitchell Robinson, with Isaiah Hartenstein, who were 2 of the best just offensive rebounders, and that's kind of their front court rotation. They'll usually stagger those minutes. They won't play them both at the same time. And we saw that come into fruition in game 1 when New York needed those extra possessions. I mean, they had 17 offensive rebounds. Like that can't, especially when you're on your home floor, that can't happen. I mean, and Emmanuel Quickly and RJ Barrett weren't. I thought Quickly was the X factor heading into the game. He wasn't that impactful for me. Just in that game, he played 24 minutes, was 0-5 from the floor. RJ was just almost also a non-factor kind of on both ends. I mean, Quickly was fine defensively, I guess, but Josh Hart took the majority of that. Donovan Mitchell loaded. And Donovan Mitchell, he was on and off throughout the game. I mean, I want to say he had a stretch in the second quarter and then a little bit in the third and fourth where you could see is like, oh, is he heating up now? Like, is he going to completely take this game over? But he wasn't able to fully, even though despite finishing with 38 points. But I think the battle on the boards, just like how it is so much in these kind of slow, methodical playoff games, especially with the Knicks and Cavs, like rebounding is very important. And that's going to be something I'm going to look out for tonight for game 2. And then just as the series goes on, it's like, even though Julius Randle might not be 100% healthy, even though Jalen Brunson was battling foul trouble throughout the game, like, how are the Knicks going to really, like, if the Knicks win the battle on the boards, I think it's their series to lose. Because it's like, you can't allow 17 offensive rebounds. And I don't remember how many second chance points Cleveland had. Or New York had. I can look it up in a second. But I think that's going to be really, really important, because it's like, even outside of Mobley and Allen, like, Cleveland doesn't have a front court rotation. Like, Chetty Osman, who was guarding Brunson at the end of the game, and Dean Wade were kind of like their backup fives. They're kind of small ball fives that they were rolling with. And it's like, even when you're going up against a Hartenstein or a Mitchell Robinson, like, that's not a recipe for success. Like, if you think you're going to outrun them, if you think you're going to get out in transition and outrun them, great. But like, Cleveland's not a team that, like, they're not a fast paced team. Like, that's not how they typically operate, especially if they're not forcing many turnovers, which they didn't. So it's like, what exactly, like, how exactly is Cleveland going to clean that up? Because they're going to need to if they want to win this series, unless Mitchell's going to go off for 40 points, unless if Darius Garland's going to get you 20 and 10 every night. Like, what's going to be your counter, Cleveland? Like, you're going to need better minutes from Okoro. You're going to need better minutes from Osman. You're going to need better minutes from LeVert, Dean Wade. If you're going to use Rubio as that kind of stabilizing backup point guard, like, you're going to need better minutes out of your bench, because the Clippers, or not the Clippers. Why did I say the Clippers? The Knicks are the better, like, I think they're probably the deeper bench because of Josh Hart, because of Quickly, because of Hartenstein. But Cleveland, I like Mitchell can take over a playoff game. You have two twin towers in there, and Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, who aren't the most traditional offensive fit, but they make it work together, and they make it work well. And with Darius Garland kind of captaining the ship a little bit, with him being like a very good distributor and a very good floor general and just a very good point guard, as well as having that 15 to 20 point per game scoring potential. So it's like, what exactly is Cleveland going to do if they're not going to win these games on the glass? Because they have to, or else they're not going to win this series. And that's what we saw in game 1.
It's alluding to your point that you made earlier, that rebounding wins playoff games. And I would say for Cleveland, that was something that I was really looking at them when they acquired Mitchell and how they were looking with him, is that they have all, like, 4 out of the 5 positions locked up in terms of, like, the kinds of players you want there. They have a really good center, really good power forward combination, and a really good backcourt with those two guys, even if they're smaller than what the NBA is looking for when it comes to, like, length and taller point guards anyway. But it's the fact that they don't have a go-to, like, small forward, a go-to, like, 5th guy for that starting lineup. And I feel that's something they'll need to address going forward. It seemed like in terms of name value, like, you could have saw Karis LeVert there. And I feel like his track record, at least during his time in, I believe in Brooklyn and I believe in either Houston or Indiana, wherever he ended up. I feel like he could have been that guy, and or like Okoro, who's still a young player, and it's just like, he's just not that kind of floor spacer. Just like a 3, like that solid 3-and-D guy they could have really used as a small forward option anyway. But to your point, like, it's mind-boggling because they have 2 legit guys in Mobley and Allen who should be those kind of glass eaters, and I feel like it's gonna have to force them to kind of, I wouldn't even say get out of their comfort zone, but just to like force them to be better. Because if you allow a team like New York to run all over you in terms of on the glass, then it could easily, like, I could easily see New York making this a series, or making this go to 7, or even taking it in 6. So that's what makes these kinds of matchups so interesting too. But I would also say that just alluding to Donovan Mitchell, like, I feel like he has to play like the best player in this series if Cleveland wants to get past New York, because New York's been good. I'll give them credit. They've been a really good team. at least compared to how they were last year. And it's kind of like the same thing.
Yeah.
They've kind of been like an on and off because they were really good in 21 because of Julius Randle, and then they I'm not even sure they made the playoffs last year, and then now they're back into the playoffs.
They missed the plan last year.
Yeah. So, but then they bring in Jalen Brunson.
Yeah.
So for Cleveland, it's about cleaning up on the glass and getting more help around Donovan Mitchell in that regard, because him putting up, if he has to go through the series averaging 38 for them to like try to get by and get a win, like you got to do more, especially with the talent you have. So it's more about the guys around him having to play better as well.
Yeah, and it's like going back to your like a Coro point. Like he's been decent this season. He's definitely developed a much better 3-point shot, but that is definitely something that is a question and that they're going to have to address. I mean, he was 0 for 4, yeah, but
it's like, damn it.
Yeah, no, like he just throughout the regular season, like he wasn't a traditional floor spacer heading into the season, but I think he's developed a 3-point game throughout the season. But he's going to have to be better. Everyone around Donovan Mitchell and even Darius Garland are going to have to just collectively just play better. Like there's really no other way for me to put this. Just play better. And it's like Julius Randle didn't even have his best game. Like I don't even think the Knicks were playing at their highest level, especially with Quickly and RJ and Randle. Like I don't think they were playing their best basketball at all in terms of like what they're capable of doing, at least offensively and even a little bit defensively. And they still were able to win a game on the road in a hostile environment, despite shooting 28% from deep and barely.
Shout out to Josh Hart, though. This man had himself. He's probably their best player anyway, because I know that you can see the numbers with Brunson, but he shot 11 of 24 to your point.
Right.
Randall 7 of 20, Barrett 2 of 12, and then you go down to Josh Hart 8 of 11, 17 points.
Hart was very good.
Yeah, one of the best rebounding guards in the NBA.
Oh, yeah.
That was a really good pickup. So I like me some Josh Hart.
Yeah, maybe I overestimated Cleveland's depth heading into this game, because I think, but again, we're only one game in, so
yeah, the amount of guys that they just have sitting, this is like how you can tell this is true playoff mode with all these guys. Derrick Rose didn't see the floor at all, which is just. It's disheartening.
He hasn't played hardly at all since they changed the rotation and like
get him out of there, man. Get him out. I feel like he still has something left in the tank. That's all I'm going to say about it. I believe game 2 will be tomorrow night too as well, or tonight. Ooh, okay. So
the NBA, how they schedule first round playoff games is weird, because it's like I think the Boston Atlanta game starts at like 7 Eastern, and then this game starts like a half hour later. Like yeah, I think. It's either like I think Thursday night they'll have Warriors Kings game 3 going at one point, and then the Clippers Suns going at like half hour. There's like a half hour difference. It's just like, why are we staggering these games like this? I mean, they do this every year, so it's nothing new, but it's just something that's confused me.
I would say in terms of like time zones and stuff, it makes it real annoying. And like I wish like they would have it. So kind of like how it was on Sunday, I believe they just had one game after another, and like that was perfect. Like do it like that. You want like. People are going to be watching basketball all day. Like you'll have people there. So like just try to like schedule it like that, even if it's during the week. But I guess I understand it from their point of view. But
no one's going to get off work at 4 Eastern or something like that to go watch.
Yeah, but I mean, hey, that doesn't stop people from watching the games on their phones, to be honest.
That's fair.
So we'll okay. So down to the last series, we like again probably not going to be a whole lot to talk about with Brooklyn and Philadelphia, but if you have any thoughts on it, shoot.
I mean, I had Sixers in 5. I thought that was not generous. I didn't know how they were gonna be able to contain Embiid, but it just turns out they're gonna double him immediately after he catches it every time. And when you have Tyrese Maxey, when you have Tobias Harris, when you have even occasionally PJ Tucker one pass away, and you're forcing Brooklyn to rotate, even though it's not like they're not shooting right away, but like you're forcing Brooklyn to rotate out of this stuff. And, I mean, they're containing him a little bit, but it's still, I mean, what, Philly hit 18 threes or something like that in game 1. They just got hot. I mean, last night it was a lot.
I think it was 21.
21?
I think so. I think it was 21.
Oh, okay. Well, regardless, like even last night, like Philly didn't get off to the hottest start, but they still found a way to pull it out because, I mean, Philly, they have arguably the league's MVP. Yeah, like, even with the shortcomings of James Harden in the postseason, like he was good in game one. It's okay yesterday, but again, like when you're not getting 15, 16, 17, 18 threes from Brooklyn on high efficiency, despite what Cameron Johnson and Mikal Bridges, like, I mean, Mikal wasn't good last night just shooting efficiency wise, but he's had a good series so far just in terms of like how he's played. But like when you're not getting like remarkable 3-point production from this team, it's so hard to beat Philly because they're just so they don't have like Nick Claxton is your traditional center. I mean, Nick Claxton at the beginning of the year was rightfully getting defensive player of the year votes or like not
discussion anyway.
Discussion, yeah. But like he's much smaller than Embiid, and you don't have someone behind him to help that. And so it's like when you're having a double every single time he catches the ball, you have to rotate and scramble out of it. And there's been multiple times this series where Brooklyn's had to overhelp and Tyrese Maxey's open in the corner for a three. And it's not a good matchup for Brooklyn, I don't think. Brooklyn has been one of the more fun stories the second half of the season after they traded Kyrie and Kevin Durant. But other than that, like it's tough. I mean, maybe they get a game in Brooklyn again where they just hit 23s and get ridiculously hot. I mean, they came within a puncher's chance in both of these two games. It just let slip as the game went on. But just over a 7-game series, I don't see Brooklyn beating them 4 out of 5 times. I just don't. And that's how my thought process was heading in. Like, I don't see them beating them 4 out of 7 times. It's just they're fun. It's not traditional, but they're fun. But against Philly and Embiid and like even Harden and Maxey,
they have too much.
Yeah, they don't have enough.
Gotcha. All right, so that concludes for the most part all the NBA talk. A good hour and 46 minutes of just talking postseason and a lot of the game one, round one still going on throughout the rest of the week for the most part. But yeah, a lot of interesting stories coming out of the opening round of the playoffs and just the start of the playoffs. I would say just overall in terms of NBA playoffs, it has the opportunity to be absolutely insane. I would say I've been more anticipating these playoffs, and I feel like people say this every year, but I feel like the playoffs do get better and better every year for the most part, especially with a lot more parity, and we're kind of trying to shy away from not even super teams, but like, oh yeah, we know those guys are winning the championship. It's hard to even say like who the favorites are right now, even though like the betting odds, like they have Boston now that Giannis went down with that and the whole back thing, but it's just nice to like not know for a change. So that's all I'm going to say wrapping up on
Miami, dude. We're gonna go all the way. No,
there you go. That's a hot take for the rest of the postseason. So we'll touch upon a little bit of baseball. I know your Yankees have yet to lose a series, and you guys are pretty much going back. Well, I'm not even sure who's in first place in the AL East right now because I know Tampa Bay has been on a crazy run.
It's Tampa still.
So like you guys are yet to lose a series, but I want to ask you that like what's been the thing about the Yankees and how their start to the season has been.
I mean, the rotation's been more impressive given the injuries. Outside of Johnny Brito allowing 7 runs and 2 outs against the Twins. But like outside of that, like I'd probably say like you're asking the most impressive thing, or like just
I would say like what's been about this team, like what's been like the things that they've been doing right, like what's caused them to be this good out the gate.
Well, I'd say hot starts from Judge. Obviously, Gleyber Torres has been. I mean, he's cooled off a little bit, but he was out to a torrid start to begin the season. And then like when you're getting production from like Franchi Cordero, who they signed, I think day before opening day, because he got cut by the Orioles, former Boston Red Sox legend, Franchi Cordero.
Hey, I will never forget him, I believe, walking off. I forgot what team it was against, but he had a walkout grand slam. And it's like, people were like saying, this is the turning point for him. This is the turning point. And then he just goes back to, I think it was just a matter of him not getting everyday playing time, which kind of sucked. and like they traded him for Benintendi, and just a lot of questionable stuff in the front office. And don't even get me started because we'll be here for another hour and 50 minutes. But no,
yeah,
I'm,
I
I'm,
know.
I'm
I know Trey's not the biggest time guy.
Oh man, I'd talk to him sometimes about it, or just seeing how he is. Just about like just talking about Heim, and I feel like people are just gonna be like there's just some people are just gonna be behind the front office like 100%, and then and then there's other people that are gonna be, I feel like hyper, or I don't know if that's the right terminology to use, but like hypercritical, if that's even a term. But I would say that like it's just the fact that this team has like the ability to be a whole lot better, but it just seems that they just haven't been. So like I like some of the additions they had. Like I like Yoshida. I feel like he's gone a bit, like I wouldn't say a slow start, but it's like I feel like he's still trying to find his footing playing it here in America. But then I love Kenley Jansen out the gate. I feel like take for me was that Kenley was gonna find his way back to being like one of the top closers in the league, and I feel going to a place like Boston is like kind of like the perfect pairing, because like I mean Boston was in desperate need of a closer, and it seems like I'm not even sure, and this is a dude coming off of I believe like a 41 save season with Atlanta last year, so I feel like the Sox were one of the worst teams in terms of like closing out games last year. And I was really never a true believer in Matt Barnes, and I think he's at least playing better than how he was here in Boston over there in Miami now. So I mean, good for him. I feel like a lot of these guys that are that Heim Bloom just let go or traded, those guys have been playing a whole lot better. So I don't know if there's something to that, but I was never really like the biggest Matt Barnes guy in terms of him being the closer. So I've always loved Kenley Jansen, no matter the shortcomings. I know Milo would have a few things to say about Kenley Jansen. Even in the fantasy baseball chat, he was talking about how Kenley was going to be pretty much horrible for Boston. But it seemed like he started out.
The thing with him is the pitch clock.
Oh yeah, like I feel like that hasn't been like the worst thing for him. I see that his velocity's up, his cutter has been disgusting, and then that mixed with that slider there, like I feel like guys with just a really good cutter and a really good slider combination are so hard to hit against, especially if it's a righty on righty thing. Because like when he closed out the Angels a couple days ago and he struck out Ohtani, Trout, and Renfroe.
Yep.
He hit Ohtani with a nasty outside cutter. And just seeing that from a batter's point of view, you think that's going to be like 4 or 5 feet out, like in the other batter's box. And then it finds its way to snap in the corner of the zone. It's like, you can't hit that kind of stuff, man. Like that should, the amount of manipulation, and then that coming at 96 miles an hour, and like baseball, it's like you only have like a couple, like split second to make a decision. It's absolutely insane. And then I believe he got Trout out on a cutter as well. And then he got Renfroe out on an outside slider. But just Kenley getting back to what made him so great in LA, I feel like it's only going to help him. I'm waiting for him to get save number 400, because like I said, I got ever since I've gotten, like I think I've been a fan of Kenley Jansen since like 2016, and like that's when I really started getting like a better feel of guys around the league. So I'm happy that he's with the Red Sox. That's kind of like one of the few good things I'm happy to see about with this team right now. But in terms of like the Yankees and stuff anyway, like it's crazy that Tampa Bay has been so good right out of the gate, because I feel like it kind of overshadows the Yankees' hot start in some aspects, because I would think that would be a lot more of a news story around the league, that those guys are still yet to lose a series. But I guess it just depends, because these guys did have a really hot start in the first half of the season and kind of cooled off in the second half. And I wanted to ask you, do you think that's like has like what potential now, because you got Rodon, you got a couple more pieces, like what's the possibility of that happening again, or do you think it's actually going to be this year's actually the year for the Yankees anyway?
I mean, I'm not gonna go and make a World Series prediction for the Yankees. 10 games into its season? I mean, we're 12 games, whatever, however many games it's been. I've lost count. Not even May yet. Yeah, like I'm not there yet. I mean, last year, a lot of it was like DJ was hurt. He had like lower body injuries that affected his health. I mean, Giancarlo wasn't healthy.
I think Stan's out for like 2 months.
He's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. Yeah, with I think a hamstring. I think what it was, something like that. But like, it was so much of just Judge, and the offense wasn't producing. I mean, the pitching really wasn't the problem at all last year. It was scoring enough runs, and if you can score enough runs, and that's why Judge's towards stretch in August and at least in early September, it was breathtaking because I mean the Yankees were trending 500 after the All-Star break. I think they went like 35 and 35 or something like that. Like they were like exactly 500, which obviously isn't good for their standards with the type of team makeup they have. But like Donaldson did not look good at all last year. Like they tried to call up Oswaldo Cabrera to ignite a little bit of a spark. And I mean, he was fine, but like he's gotten off to a slow start this year. Not that I'm worried about it or anything, but like they didn't like at the deadline, they had that weird deadline deal where they traded for Bader, where they flipped Montgomery. And it was just like, wait, what? Like, why did we trade one of our best starters? But like, it wasn't necessarily the pitching. I mean, they were a below average offense across baseball the second half of last season. And at least to start this year, I think they're like a fringe top 10 offense. And like, again, when it like Judge is off to another like hot start. I mean, Rizzo has been awesome, at least these last few games, and he's off to a really good start. Same with Stanton when he's been on the field. I mean, it sucks that he got injured, but I mean, it is what it is. I mean, we've seen a little bit of it from Volpe. I mean, it feels like he's turning a corner in that aspect. I mean, he's traditionally been a slow starter, climbing up through the minors, but he's getting on base more. And of course, we've seen what he can do when he's on the base pass. I mean, he just completely fucks with pitchers. It's funny. And just his ability to steal bases. I mean, the Yankees haven't had a true base stealer like him since Brett Gardner, who also wore number 11, but Gardner didn't steal that much. So like with the bigger bases and the pitch timer and the pickoff limit, like this will definitely help guys like Anthony Volpe. And I've talked about this with Bagdonis before, like, but guys like him, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like Nick Gordon, like just guys who are just complete speedsters. I mean,
like some of the guys over in Baltimore, like Mullins and Mateo.
Like you saw that first series with Boston. I mean, Baltimore ran wild, dude. Like they had like 10 stolen bases that series. It was just like teams are running a lot more, and so like that at least helps him. But when you're getting like at least decent production from your lineup in that aspect, I mean, it makes it easier. Like Garrett Cole just threw a complete game shutout against, I think, he threw a complete game shutout. It was either Saturday or Sunday, or Cole, but like regardless, Cole's been awesome this year. I mean, Clark's still trying to find his footing. He struggles against lefties, which is a problem, but that's something to be talked about for another day. But like, I mean, he's actually on the bump tonight against Shohei, so that's storyline. Mm-hmm. But like, Clark's finding his footing. Brito obviously had that one just terrible game against Minnesota.
He was the one that gave up. Was it 4 straight?
He was in that outing. I don't know if it was him directly.
But yeah, because I was like, wait a minute, like four Twins went off for home runs against the Yankees. I'm like, who the hell was pitching that?
Yeah, like I remember turning on that game. I was like, but it's 7-0 before you could blink. It was just like, what like, what exactly are we doing here? Like Nestor is still holding the fort down. He's still pitching well. And so, I mean, the bullpen at times has been shaky. I mean, I know they got not walked off. They surrendered a late lead, I think, on Friday against Minnesota. It's like one of their like worst losses of the season. But like in general, I think the pitching staff is, outside of that one weird messed up outing, I thought the pitching staff has pitched pretty well. And I like the production that they've gotten from Judge, from Rizzo, from Stanton, from Glaber, just kind of different guys. And again, I think we'll see more from Oswaldo. I think we'll see more from Volpe. But that's enough about the Yankees. No one wants to hear about that.
No, but speaking of Minnesota, though, like Minnesota's been good. They
have been pretty good. They have been pretty good. Like that, they have been impressive. I mean, I think, who do they have upcoming? I want to say it was like, maybe I'm thinking of like the wrong team, but I want to say it was like a good series. Maybe not. Well, they have Boston today. That's right.
Yeah, I like.
Boston for 3 games, and then New York plays them for 4 more. They also have Washington sandwich. Maybe I'm thinking of a different team, but no, yeah, they've been good. I mean, it's one of like those hot starts that like they're 10-6. They have a plus 18 run differential, in part to that 11-1 victory, which I just hope to forget at some point. They've gotten off to a good start. I mean, Sonny Gray's pitched well.
Pablo Lopez.
Pablo Lopez. I was just about to mention him.
He
Yeah,
just got like a 4-year deal. I forget how much. 4 years, 75, or maybe cheaper than that.
it was in that range. Yeah.
Yeah, and the dude's like has like a 1.80 ERA or something to start out the season.
Yeah.
I'm like, my goodness, what like Miami? I always give Miami credit the last couple of years of having just like really good pitching or just knowing how to like build pitchers, and then like you obviously see Sandy Alcantara. I've never understood his last name. Was it Alcantara or Alcantara? Like that's
I heard the second one more so now. I thought it was the first one.
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. Like I guess you got to speed it up in terms of pronunciation. So I'm like, okay, so I'm just gonna call him Sandy for right now. But just Sandy being one of the top pitchers in the league, and then you have Pablo Lopez, but now we got Jesus Luzardo, who I've been really happy about having on my fantasy team. We can allude to fantasy a little bit to kind of wrap up the show. But Pablo Lopez just has been like I think it's like the addition of a couple of pitches to his mix that has made the difference for him. But also to my understanding, because I haven't been able to catch a lot of Minnesota Twins games, that Byron Buxton hasn't really been playing a whole lot of the field. They've been having him DH a lot of these games, so it's kind of like protecting him in that aspect. And I feel like that's probably like one of the better fits for him anyway, is that you don't have him out as much, because it just sucks, because if he's not hurt, he's one of the best players in the league. It's just he hasn't had a full season's workload to show how good he can actually be. And it's really did a number on him the last couple of years, because he's already on the late side. I believe he's like 29 now, and like Minnesota gave him like 28, 29, and Minnesota gave him that big extension to be like, hey, like we have all the confidence in the world in you to carry this team into the next decade. But
29.
What's up? The 29?
29. Yep.
29. Yeah. So and then they bring back Carlos Correa, even though jumped through a lot of hoops to do that. But I'm happy. Joe Ryan also has been.
Joe Ryan. I like Joe Ryan.
So I want the Twins to be good, because like they have a lot. I feel like their team is too good to be a team that isn't a factor in the American League Central, especially when it's like it seems more or less like it could seem more or less like a 2-team race with Cleveland, and depending on how Chicago is looking throughout the year. But for the most part, like Minnesota, like they haven't won a playoff game in God knows how long, and haven't not even to mention a playoff series. So I'm hoping that is something that I can be able to change, because like those guys, like that group, like it may just be a hot start, and it may just be like maybe looking into it a little too much. But if they can keep it going throughout the entire season, I can easily see these guys being formidable in October. But that also is contingent on guys staying healthy, and if they make it to the playoffs, actually winning a damn game.
Yeah, well, it's like they're also getting production from guys like Solano, and then Michael A. Taylor, who is playing center field too.
Yeah, see
I think he's been the one
underrated.
playing center instead of Buxton. But like they're getting production from those guys, as long as like you mentioned Joe Ryan, who I enjoy watch pitching every time he's on the mound. Obviously Pablo Lopez, that's a weird one, because it's like, did both teams win that trade? We're on the surface, 15 games in. Like, didn't both teams kind of get the good, at least from what we've seen at the MLB level? Like,
yeah, I would believe so, because like you have Luis Ariz, who's already like still batting, I believe like close to 400 or something like that right now. Crazy stuff. Dude's found his way to be like in a rare case of being a superstar level player without hitting home runs or like anything like that. He's just like a really good hitter, just pure good hitter. And then you have Pablo Lopez, who I feel like a change of scenery was needed for him, and it kind of sucks, because I feel like he was I feel like that kind of combo with him and Sandy could have been really, really nasty. But I think it was more that I think it was just more he had to get away from like his original situation just to be able to unlock just like that it factor about him to actually make him, because I feel like if he keeps pitching like this, he's an all-star without a doubt. So
Yeah.
I would say like it's sometimes just finding a bit different ballpark to pitch in for like the majority of the season is always a good thing for certain players, and it's definitely a case here. So no, but yeah, I definitely believe it's a win-win trade as of right now.
Yeah, no, it's just one of those like weird instances where, I mean, again, we're what, like a 10th into the season. Like,
Yeah, like
there's way early to tell anything.
We'll readdress this in like come All-Star weekend or something. And then we'll look
readdress
back
this in like a year.
Yeah, I'm like, what the hell were we talking about? This guy sucks, or no, like they got finessed, or but no, but yeah, like I guess like the talk of the town has really been like Tampa Bay. Those guys have been solid. They ran off like 13 straight wins before getting toppled by Toronto. A lot of like the just a lot. I feel like a lot of good baseball going on right now. But we'll switch over to fantasy a little bit, and then we'll just call it. We've been here for 2 hours and 5 minutes. So
I told you, don't shut up.
Yeah, but good discussion. It's been a really good discussion. I've been having a great time. But no, but yeah, how do you like your team right now? And obviously, like I guess I'll address like the little bit of like the elephant in the room with like the Yordan Alvarez trade I made with Trey. But how are you enjoying your team so far?
I forgot about that. I forgot you. By the way, I just checked my phone like a few minutes ago, just to make sure like no one was like dead or anything. Not to say anyone is, or I just wanted to check it, make sure. I didn't know what time it was either. I also just got a trade offer Trey. He wants to send an offer to me. Should I message him while we're live and see what?
Go ahead.
See what
Go
it
ahead.
is.
Why not?
Okay, just for the audience here, Trey, if you're watching this, welcome aboard. Okay, what? Yeah, he says I got a trade offer and I want to see if you would do it. I'm like blowing negotiations right now. I'm very on air about this. Okay, let's see if he responds back in a timely manner. But anyways, just in terms of my fans, it's like they're all right. I mean, dude, we're 2 weeks into the season.
Wait, what's the record?
My record?
Yeah.
2-0. I lead the league in scoring.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, again, like, I mean, dude, it's fantasy. It's you gotta stay active. You gotta stay attentive to this stuff. I don't have to tell you that, but just speaking in general sense, like you gotta remain active. Also, Brendan Donovan's not the lineup today. Just found that out looking at my team. That's cool. But like, I think my team is all right. Like, I'm not gonna make any assumptions after 2 weeks. I mean, fantasy is a thing where you change it around so much to where it's like half of these guys probably won't even be on my team in 3 weeks or something. Like, my team looks completely different than it did a few weeks ago, and it's going to probably be an ever-flowing change. But
just revolving door talent.
I did get a trade offer from Milo the other day that I declined.
What was the offer? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was. I already declined it, so it's not like it's gonna like matter anyways. But
yeah,
I think it was either yesterday or 2 days ago. It was either way. He sent me an offer for Spencer Strider and Hunter Renfroe, and he wanted to trade Sandy, and I was like, I'm good.
He was gonna trade Sandy.
I'm not looking to trade Strider right now, if I'm being honest, and I don't love what I've seen from Sandy, especially since he's a ground ball pitcher, and the abundance of the shift has kind of more or less hurt him to an extent. So if I'm trading my best strikeout arm or my best starting pitcher for someone who's not completely reliant on strikeouts, and probably one of my better outfielders, even though I just picked him up a few days ago, like I'm good. I'm not a big fantasy trader, if I'm being honest, but let's see if Trey responded back. He hasn't yet, but
I would say in terms like pitching has been just like my Achilles heel these first couple of weeks, and that was like the biggest thing I was thinking about when it came to trading Yordan. And yeah, like I know on the outside it looks like I traded away my best hitter for pretty much somebody who at least in terms of fantasy, doesn't provide, at least at this moment in time, doesn't provide equal enough value in terms of how Mookie has started off the year. And then trading for Syndergaard and Whitlock. I want actually, you know, before I kind of go into it so much, I'm assuming I'm not sure if you saw the trade details, but or just read Saban's article about it a couple days ago. But I want to get your opinions first before I kind of go on my little.
I'm looking at it right now. I just pulled it up. I mean, I don't think it's a. Trying to like process this one. I mean, I don't think it's like pitching is more valuable than hitting in fantasy. It's not a secret. You probably figured that out by now. At least starting pitching is like, if you have good starters on the mound, they're going to get you more points. If you get a guy who pitches 5 1/3 with 2 hits, 1 earned, and 8 strikeouts, is usually going to get you more than a guy who goes 2 for 4 with a double and an RBI. Like that's just by it. Like, but then again, like the complete production of your lineup could match up with your pitching depending on how many starters you have going, depending on what your closer situation looks like for any given day. So I see it from that perspective. I mean, I don't hate trading Yordan Alvarez, Edward Cabrera, and Isaac Paredes, who's been a little bit inconsistent for. I mean, Tommy Edmonds all right. If Whitlock and at least be better in the rotation, and Syndergaard, who it's the Dodgers, dude. Like, who the hell knows what's going to happen? And Mookie Betts. Like, I don't hate it if you need pitching. I mean, but the thing is with pitching is there's always. I mean, you're going to hear this from me. I know I probably shouldn't be giving you advice because we are competing against each other in the league, but like, there's pitching out there. You just have to you have to pick and choose your battles when it comes to like, yeah, it may not be the prettiest starter in the coop, but like,
yeah, but they'll get the job done. Like
some guys will get you good outings depending on like where they're like, are they at home or are they away? Like, who's their matchup? But are they facing the Tampa Bay Rays or are they facing the Oakland Athletics? Like, what? Like, you have to pick and choose your battles when it comes to this stuff. And so it's like, again, I'm telling you this as like, yeah, I'm competing against you, but it's just for the general sense. Like, this is the reality of it. And so it's like, if you like, Syndergaard's not a bad arm. I don't know what he's done lately. I haven't looked it up, but
I know Whitlock had himself a solid outing, but it's just so weird with Boston in terms of like now Cora's trying out like a 6-man rotation, so Houck is going to stay in the starting rotation at least for the time being. But I would say that yeah, like that was kind of like my thought process going into it. Like, Yordan was more or less my best bet because Soto's been struggling. Lindor's been off and on. Arenado, he had himself like, he would have himself like a string of good games, and then he would kind of like go cold for a little bit. And then who else do I have that I didn't have a second baseman, so Edmonds seemed like it was a pretty good fit. Or like I had splits or just like platoon with Paredes and Drury. I dropped Drury after the trade, but then yeah, so like I looked at Mookie and it's like Mookie's only 30. I know Trey was alluding to like declining maybe in order for Mookie when in terms of his quote when he was talking about the trade, but I feel like he's adapted more because he's not stealing as many bases as he used to from his MVP season. I believe he had like himself a couple of 30 stolen base seasons, but what he lost in terms of speed and in terms of base running aggression, he's contributed more to power and more to being a better hitter. So I would say there's still Mookie still has plenty in the tank, and it's baseball. Guys can play with like huge productivity until like they're 35, 36 years old. I get it. Mookie isn't the biggest or the tallest guy out there, and it's probably going to benefit him more because I don't think he's really been out with like long-term injuries for very much throughout his career. So, but yeah, I feel like I needed pitching. Chris Sale being my best option was not a good look at all. But I would say though, like I've been trying my best to find like Jesus Luzardo. I don't remember if I think I drafted him or picked him. Either way, I know it was because Jesus Luzardo has been good. Nick Lodolo, when I picked him up, he had himself a solid start. So Lodolo's
good.
Yeah,
He's
like
on. I mean, I know he's on Cincy, but he's good.
I'm trying to figure out like who dropped him because I remember I claimed him off waivers, and so I'm like, yeah, I'm hanging on to this kid because I feel,
Garrett.
yeah. See, so I feel like dropping somebody like that, like in terms of Cincinnati, like I feel like the pitchers there are like at least the guys like your Hunter Green and like somebody like Niccolo Dolo, like those guys kind of have like all the opportunity in the world to be on the mound and be able to like just develop because those guys are pretty much going to be like the identity or the focal point of your team going forward anyway. Like those guys ain't going anywhere. So I feel like they have all the opportunity in the world to be great or at least to show out in this first full season of production. I did have Mackenzie Gore. I don't know if he's I still have him or I did drop him, but I would like to say just building on the pitching is just gonna be what dictates like the rest of the season for me. And like I said in the post, I don't care to trade anybody. Anybody on my team is like if it means like my team gets better because of it, then I have no problem in making a deal work. Like I wouldn't mind working with everybody, but that doesn't mean I'm selling guys off for like pennies on the dollar. Like I would want to like, get something of equal value or get something that's going to help my team in some form or fashion. But yeah,
You
like
wouldn't trade me Mookie Betts for Zach Eflin, who's hurt. You wouldn't do that. That's mean.
like that's an intriguing one. And like I said, I would be willing to work with everybody, but
I'm joking when I say that.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's like there's such a big talent discrepancy, and Eflin's going to be hurt for the next 2 months. So it's like
no, yeah, but that's
I would do that.
But what I'm saying is, it's like if let's say you were to come to me for a trade, like because Trey at first was asking like I forgot like what the initial details of the trade was at first because he reached out being like, hey, I want to try and get Yordan Alvarez. I'll trade you Whitlock and Mookie for him, and then I was like, I said I wasn't looking to trade Yordan, and he was like, it was so many different ways that trade could have looked. And then what ended up being is what you saw in the details of it anyway. But yeah, like if it means like the team gets better because of it, if I have to trade pretty much one guy, because Edward Cabrera didn't do pretty much anything for me, pretty much. He had himself maybe one semi-decent start, but then like the rest he was just flaming garbage. And then so I know he had a whole lot of hype going into the draft and everything. And when I picked him, like guys like Henrik or James and a couple other guys were pissed that I took him, but it's like he probably will find his footing later in the season. But as of right now, I'm like he can go and try to make himself something on Trey's team. Go ahead. So trading Yordan to potentially get a lot more like point accumulation and the other guys I traded for, I feel like that's how I looked at it. It's kind of like the same way I've been thinking about fantasy basketball. You trade one guy, one star player, for somebody who's maybe like a tier below, and then a couple of role players who give you steady production. Like I'd rather take like the total of like that group than what one guy can do, because not one player is going to be like the like sway one team, if I'm making sense.
So no, I do fantasy basketball too, and yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like
but I don't trade. I don't trade in general in fantasy, but no, I know what you mean. Just
like it's about like a whole group of guys giving yourself steady production.
Right. Right.
Wait, so you're probably not going to make any trades at all?
I don't know, but I'm not like a guy who's going to go out of his way to make trades.
Interesting. I mean, hey, you're 2-0, so I mean, you're sitting pretty anyway.
Dude, we're doing this after 2 weeks. I mean, it can change. I just lost a point. That's cool. Trey Turner just struck out.
Sweet.
Who are you facing this week? Are you facing
Jerry? I think Jerry.
Yeah, you're facing Jerry.
I think it started out like he was like a +1. I was -1 because I think somebody struck out. So I was like, perfect. Starting the week off right.
Yeah, surprisingly, yesterday I didn't have a starter go, but it still scored 28 points, which is it's always nice when you get a home run from Renfroe, who hit a grand slam. I think he hit a grand slam. That was against Boston. Austin Riley hit a home run.
Wait, did he hit a grand? I thought it was Urshela hit the grand slam. Unless
no, yeah, you're right. He had 4 RBIs though.
I mean, he may have, because I mean they won 5-4 last night.
I'm trying to remember. Dude, my brain's so effing foggy from playoff basketball. I don't even know which way
It's got to get worse in a little bit. You got Celtics and you got the Celtics coming up at 7, and I'm not sure what the other games coming up, but
yeah, we got Celtics Hawks at 7 Eastern. Then there is Knicks Cavs at 7:30, and then the last game of the night. What's the last game of the night? Oh, Suns Clippers. We got a good slate, even though they're staggered.
yeah.
It's like,
I mean, I can probably at least stick around for Suns and Clippers tonight anyway, because I don't have much going on tomorrow, at least tomorrow night anyway, or tomorrow morning, I should say. But no, but yeah. So I mean, hey, anything else you want to talk about? We talked a lot about playoff basketball. We talked some MLB fantasy. Been here damn near 2.5 hours. So you got anything else you want to chime in on?
just tell me to shut up next time if I'm talking too much.
Dude, no, you're good. No, it was the same thing with like McGinnis. Like you guys go on like your monologues and rants, and it's not like it's a ramble. It's not. So it's more if it's contributing to the discussion, I'm gonna let you guys go.
Okay.
So I'll say
I
the only
appreciate hearing that. So again, I tell Beck Donuts the same thing. I was like, dude, just tell me to, if I'm talking too much, just tell me.
It's time to close the show. You need to stop. No. If it's genuine discussion, then it's
Trey's gonna look at these and people will be like, "What the heck's going on?" Like
it's 2.5 hours. What do you guys do? Oh, okay. You know what? Okay, cool.
Yeah, but, Matt's on. That makes sense. Got
it. Yeah. No, but all right. But you're all good.
Yeah, I'm good.
I mean, all right. So thank you all for joining us for this very long, very informative, very fun episode of the Vendetta Sports Daily Show. It is April 18th, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow with a different crew, the Wednesday crew coming in. But yeah, that's all I have. That's been Matt Hannafin. I've been Jermaine Dependent. We'll see you guys next time.